Hello everybody! So I am purple today because I have new lights and I wanted to try them out. I have a new camera too, so hopefully I'm very clear. And today we're going to do a masterclass. It is going to be an exterior tutorial. We've only had a few people ask me to do this because, as you know, if you follow iMeshh, we have a lot of interior tutorials and they all do incredibly well and we're incredibly well received. So it's really good to finally do a proper exterior tutorial for you. We have done an exterior tutorial before, but it is just a cabin in the middle of nowhere, and the cabin is already built and it's not really useful for any kind of commercial project. So this time we're going to go straight from the floor plans all the way up to a building, the scenery, the lighting, final post-processing until we have a finished piece. Now, you might be wondering why I've put this off for so long, and that is because if you're going to do an interior, generally there's going to be 4 walls, a floor, maybe a balcony or a garden in the background, but generally it's going to be the same. The only thing that's going to change is going to be the interior design style. But when it comes to an exterior render, that is vast. It could be anything. You could have a skyrise building, skyscrapers, apartment buildings, to a little prefab house, to a house in the countryside, a house in the city, a house on a street. It, depending on where it is going to require different skills. So I never really knew where to start. I just put it off because I just thought, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know what is the right way to start, but just doing one and just starting is the best way to start. So I am starting. So I decided to choose this kind of style, and this is a very popular style right now, and I thought that could be a great step into starting the exterior tutorials, because this will be great for a portfolio piece, and there's a lot of concepts that you'll need for a lot of exterior renders, which will be covered in this one. There will of course be other concepts for other styles of exterior renders, and I'm hoping that this one, if it's well received, I can then do other types of exteriors going forwards. But this one I'm super excited for. I think the final render is going to look great, and I think that you'll be very happy with it. I'm going to cover everything from going from floor plans to modeling this building, to adding the environment, the background, the sky, clouds, and the lighting, to post-processing and the final presentation. So there's going to be a lot covered inside this one tutorial. And just like my previous masterclass, it's going to be about 2-3 hours, I imagine. It's going to be quite long, but for what we're doing is quite short. So there will be concepts which I might breeze over, and there might be ways in which I approach something which you might approach differently, but I don't have time to go over every individual way of approaching a certain way of doing things. So if I model the building, which might be quite unique to a lot of people, if you don't like that way, I unfortunately don't have enough time to approach it in a different way in the same tutorial. So if this video is well received, I might actually make this into a full course where it's much longer. I can go over every concept in each module, and it just depends if that's what you guys want. But just by that nature, I'll expect you to have some basic knowledge in Blender. I will have my screencast keys available, so you will be able to see what I am pressing, and I will try to explain what I'm doing and why I'm doing it, so you can take those concepts going forwards. So what do we need to complete this render? So I will be using Blender 4.0 for this. This isn't the official final release version just yet. I think the latest one is 3.6, but I will be using 4.0 because that will be released in a few months, and I want to future-proof this project. So if people in a few months pick up this project, it will make more sense to them, because the button layouts might be a bit different, such as the principal shader is getting a full rework, so things might be different. So I'm going to use 4.0 for this, but do expect that my version, because it's not the final release version, there might be a few tweaks here and there, so buttons might be in a slightly different place to where you're expecting them to be, so just bear that in mind. But in general, 4.0 I think is a great place to start, because it's having such a big rework all over the board, so your renders will look more realistic and everything will just look much better. So I'm going to use 4.0. The other thing I'll be using is Photoshop. Now, I believe you can do this in Affinity Photo, and that one is much cheaper than Photoshop. I think it has most of the tools, but I am a Photoshop lover. I've used Photoshop forever, so I will be using Photoshop. If you want to use Photoshop, I'm sure that there's a free trial you can get, or you can just purchase it just for 1 month, which I think if you just get Photoshop, it's not too bad. If you just do it just to learn some basics, it could be worth doing. I'll be using that to finish off the project. If you're not doing post-production to your renders, you are missing out hugely. So please get some form of post-processing. The next tool is going to be iMeshh. Now, we are iMeshh, and we are an architectural visualization library, and we have almost approaching 2,000 assets now, so we'll be using just that for this project. Exterior renders usually require quite a lot of assets, so you might need a lot of exterior packs, such as Quixel and Megascans, but everything that we need will be available on iMeshh. And right now we have a sale, 50% off, and we only do a 50% off once a year, and that is actually for Black Friday. So you'll be able to get almost 2,000 assets for $75, which is actually insane. You can't really get better value for that. We get so many people telling us that we are the best library online. Our quality is incredible. We've managed to get so many people into Archviz, and they now make money through Archviz. Check out our Discord. There's many people who use iMeshh, and they have so many clients, and they're posting all their projects. It's just amazing to see. So if you're looking to get into Archviz, this is now the time to do it. If you were to buy each individual asset separately, like any other marketplace, for about $5 to $7 each, this will cost you about $12,000. So you can get that for $75. So I hope you can see the value in this. We try to release 30 new assets per month. And we've done that for the last 4 years. So if you sign up now and you stay subscribed, by the end of the year, you'll have an additional 360 assets. Is that right? An additional 360 assets by the end. And every time we try to release more and more and more stuff. So we recently released an incredible floor generator, which is one of the first available for Blender. And it's incredibly well received as well. It's just one of the best floor generators available. So happy with it. We were so happy when GeoNodes allowed us to do this, because this is something which we wanted to do. And we didn't want to use it, make another add-on for it. So this is now built into Blender, which is incredible. We released some fences, we're releasing decorative sets. Everything to help you in your Archviz projects is what we strive to do to make you money. So I think that $75 is probably one of the best investments you'll make all year. Okay, so let's just jump straight in. Okay, so what we have here is going to be the floor plan. So we have the top floor, the bottom floor, we have the front, we have the right, we have the left, and we have the rear. So I'm going to give you this file, and it's going to come with all the floors available just like this. I've already laid them out. When you import the file originally, it's probably going to be a DWG from the customer, and you'll need to convert that. There's tons of online converters which will convert it to a DXF. Then you just need to go to edit preferences and enable DXF, and then you can import the DXFs. And usually when they import, they're just going to be all flat, just like this, all laid out flat. But what you can do is separate each part, join all the pieces together, and then lay them directly over each other. So let's say you have this one over here and you want it by this corner to be directly overlaid over here. Turn on snapping with Shift Tab and make sure you have active selected. Go into edit mode, select, deselect, then select the one you want, and then you can just move that over directly. So now you know that it's going to be directly overlaid over this floor. But I already had that in place, so I'm going to put that back, because then once that's in place, you want to make sure that it's also then on the correct plane. So that's what I've got here. So I've laid these all out ready for you. So what we're going to do now is start making the floors. Now, this is the actual PDF, and this has a bit more information which Blender can't show. So these checkered lines show that is going to be the wall on top, and the black lines are going to be the floor that we're working on. And there's a few bits of other information which is going to be super helpful. So we're going to be flicking between the two to make sure that we've got all the information that we need. Okay, and then the next part we're going to discuss is I'm going to model this in quite a particular way, which I find to work best. It means I find it a lot easier to break it down in my head, how you're going to model all these intricate bits and pieces. Because if you model this bit that goes up, then it goes left, where would the window go? So I'm going to break this out into 4 separate parts. So what we have here is the bottom floor as one part. We have this section, which is going to be the second part. We have this floor, which could be the third part, and then the top, which is going to be the fourth part. So I'm going to lay out each part separately, and then we're going to find a way to join them together, and then we're going to import the indoor areas and work from there. This workflow is a little bit different to what other people do, but I really find it quite intuitive once you get the hang of it, and I find it easier to scale to bigger and bigger buildings. If you find you would prefer to model this in another way, then feel free. You have the floor plans, so go ahead and just make the floor plan how you prefer. But I do recommend giving my way a shot, because you might find you actually quite like this. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is hide the top one, and then we're going to work on the bottom floor. So the first thing you want to do is go to Edit, Preferences, and make sure you have Extra Objects enabled. Just tick them on and make sure you save preferences. And then what I'm going to do is just go into Edit mode for this one, Shift S, cursor to selected, and then just do Shift A, Mesh, Add Single Vert, Add Single Vert. Make sure you press 1 to make sure that you have vertex mode selected. And then what we're going to do is just press E and extrude. So we get to this point and there are multiple lines here, and we don't really know where the wall is going to end. So if I go over to here, we can try to look at this one to see if it makes more sense. And this is that actual edge here, and we can see that this bit is actually a dotted line. So that's referring to the wall above. So we only need to care about this gray line, which goes across here, goes down into the window, goes along this window, and then we get to this door section, which again goes up. So all this other information we can ignore. So what we're going to do is go across here, just press E, just follow this along and go to here. This window, I'm actually going to ignore this whole thing because we don't need this window here. There's also a mistake from the architect where things are not quite aligned. So when you're snapping it, make sure you snap to the right area. But I didn't like that window in general, so I'm going to just leave that out. And then what I'm going to do for each window and each door section, I'm just adding a vertex so that will be useful later. Actually, I need to add another one here. Let's just drop one there. Okay. And one on the outside of the doors. And then I'm just going to go across to here, and there's a window here. And then we get to another section. We don't really know what's going on here, so let's just check the PDF. Okay, so this is actually a dotted line, so that's referring to the wall above, and that goes all the way across. So we just need to care about going across this window and down and then out. So let's do that. Let's just snap to here. Now there's a tiny ledge here of 0.005 meters. I'm just gonna bring this up a little bit further so it's a little bit easier to see where the window should start, because I don't think that should be there. I'm just going to extrude that out, add another point here, and again here this could easily get snapped to the wrong part, so just be aware of that. This is quite common with architects, not always do the lines quite align, so just be sure that it's always snapping to the right place. Okay, now what we have here is this will be covered with wall paneling. And I don't quite like this area here. The architect added it, but I don't quite like this section, so I'm just going to ignore it. But I'm just going to bring this out a little bit further. I do want there to be a little inset, because then the wall paneling can go in here. But I'm just going to go straight to the window. Just ignore this bit, but you can add it in if you really want to. And there we go. We have the first floor. So what I'm going to do is go to the front view, select everything and just bring it down to this part, which is probably going to be the bit that goes underground a little bit. Press E to extrude that on the Z axis, and then that looks good. And then I want to extrude that up. And if you look at the top left corner, it says 3 meters, and we can check if that's correct over here. And we can see here that this is 3 meters high here, and that is correct. So that is going to be the first section. The next section is going to be this part. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate that and then separate it. So this section, because this is going to be the bit that overhangs, that will be referring to the actual dotted line sections here. So what we need to do is edit that section so that it fits into this part. So let's start over here. That was the first bit which we saw. Let's just delete all these vertices. And we know that this goes to here because this is now a dotted line. Dotted line goes right along to the end. So let's just bring that up here and then just bring this all the way across to here. Let's delete all these ones. And there we go. We now have that section which goes across like that. And we need to fix this bit too, which also goes just straight across here. So we don't need any of these vertices. And then we could just bring this across like this. Okay, and then that is basically done. So what I'm going to do now is actually just scale that SZ0 to scale that in the Z axis, snap that to the top, and then we need to extrude that on the Z axis by 0.8. We can check that here. this says that that part is specifically 0.8. So that is that part done. The next part is going to be the second floor. So if we unhide and go to this part, and then we're going to go into local mode, and we could just do the same for this one. So let's just have a look at the plan. And we need to follow this gray bit that goes all the way along. And these parts, this white part is going to be referring to the bit that's just below. So we've already created this part, so we can ignore that. But there might need to be a bit of an inset later if we're going to see it. The same for this part, we can just ignore that for now. We just want to go right across here, inset, just follow this whole part along. So let's add another vertex. Put that here, and then just go to the windows, just get the edge of the windows. This will make a bit more sense later, once I do that. Right, so this is the part which can be ignored, because that's this piece. So let's just go straight down to the window, and straight to this window, and go to this edge. Does that snap to the right part? Yes, and then we want to go across here, because this is this part, and go straight down by the windows. So let's go across here, and straight across, down to here, and to here, and then we are, then we are done. So we have this part done. Now if we go out of here, and we can go to the front view, and we can then see how high this should be. So let's just EZ that, and it says 2.201, but I think that's actually meant to be just 2.2 meters high. I think there might be some slight snapping issue there. So let's just do that, and we can check that here. That says that this is going to be 2.2. So that's going from this top ledge to this top ledge, which is 2.2. And then what we're left with is just the top part. So let's duplicate that again, separate that, grab that part, and then what we want to do is have a look at where this needs to go. Now the only part that's going to overhang on this section is going to be this top part, because this part is okay. So now we have this top section. What we need to do is just check this, and we can see that the only cutout in this top section is going to be here. On the back wall, it's going to be totally flat, and from here it's totally flat except for this cutout and this piece. So everything here is going to be fine except for up until about here. So I'm going to delete all of these vertices and then work from here. So if I now extrude this out and extrude and then connect these two, we then have that section. So let's again EZ and 0.8, because this one is also 0.8 high, and then we can just press F, and then we have that face that's filled in. Actually, I'm not going to fill it in just now, so we can see inside it while we work on the next sections. So you may be thinking that these are not connected, and they are not. And how can we unwrap this? And we don't actually need to connect them if we don't want to. We can join them, but we don't necessarily need to connect them. So the vertices are perfectly overlapping each other, which means that even if we add a bevel or anything like this, let's just do A, Shift N to make sure that the normal is facing the right way. We can add any bevel and it will always work perfectly, and you won't be able to see that these bits are not connected. But you might be thinking that how do you unwrap something like this then? Well, I've done a lot of Archviz in 3D Studio Max, and in 3D Studio Max, which is kind of the industry standard for Archviz, well, maybe not anymore, they have a thing called UV box unwrap, and that means that you can project a box onto any object and it will unwrap perfectly, which is obviously great for Archviz. So I've created a material here which has a box unwrap, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later, but we basically have an image texture set to box, and then we have it generated. So if I go to render preview, we can see that it aligns perfectly. So if I move this out of the way, it's just trying to create a box around the whole object, but because these vertices are perfectly aligned, you'll never be able to see that the UVs are not correct. So the texture will flow perfectly over the object, and you'll never know that these pieces are not connected. So for now, I'm just going to leave them disconnected. I'm not going to join them together because it's not necessary. We will also create lots of n-gons during this method, but this won't be used in any game engines, and in general, the object won't be twisted or turned, so n-gons are not very bad. N-gons are actually not bad at all in certain use cases. Hard surface modelers, for example, they often have n-gons, but it's just a common misconception that you always need to have quads, but that's just not true. So we'll be using n-gons for this project. Okay, so let's move on. Let's work on the next sections. So the next section I'm going to work on is going to be filling in these spaces here. So this is going to be the floor, this is going to be the ceiling, and this is also going to be a ceiling, and there's going to be one over here as well. So to do that, I'm going to work with these center parts, and to do that, what I'm going to do is select. Let's actually just separate these out. Okay, I'm going to select this vertex, press E and extrude, and then just follow this edge along. It's a bit hard to see what's going on here. Okay, then I'm going to select all of these edges here. Oops. And deselect these ones, and then press F. Now we have a floor. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Let's just extrude this along here. And this will all make sense a little bit later, and it will all just somehow magically all work together. So let's just select these edges. Sometimes edge select just doesn't work. Okay, there we go. And then just deselect these and select this one as well. Whoop. And fill that in. So now we have a ceiling, we have a floor, and let's do the same thing for over here. Let's just select these ones, F, and then do the same thing for this one. So I'm just going to extrude this along. And fill that in. Okay, there we go. I'm just going to do merge by distance just in case I missed any. And there we go. So actually we can just fill this in while we're here, and then we have everything done. But I will delete this floor because I will want to see inside, I think. Okay, great. So now we need to work on the interiors and then cut out the windows. Right then, so to make the interior floor, I'm just going to select this piece and go into local view. And then what I can do is, I'm not sure what this media pause play is saying. So what I'm going to do is actually just add another vertex, mesh, add vertex, go press 1 and just snap that to here. And then I'm going to follow the whole interior. Let's just go to the edge of these doors like this and press F. And then just duplicate this piece and then just go around as well. We're going to go around all the windows and doors. Again, just snap into the edge of these windows and then to the edges here. Make sure we're leaving a vertex at the edge of each window and at the edge of each door. Okay. And go all the way around like so. Okay, there's some double points here again, so let's just we need to bring that into this one. Just be careful with the snapping. I'm going to ignore this window because I don't want to have the window in the final piece. Okay, that was a creative decision by the architect, which I thought looked nice, but then once I finished the actual render, you could see straight through the house, which I didn't quite like. So anyway, let's keep doing these rooms. Okay, and then the final one. Oh, and one more room. So let's just duplicate that and bring that over here. Okay. There we go. So now we need to figure out how high this room is. So if we check out this floor plan, what we can see here is that the interior is going to be, so I believe it's to this line here. So I think that's to 3.05 meters. So that'll go from the base floor to this dotted line here, which I believe is the ceiling. So I'm going to do EZ, 3.05 meters, and then we have the interior wall. Okay, Now what I want to do is add the doors and the windows, and then we can merge that into the exterior section. Okay, so let's add a loop cut here. We don't actually have a section with these floor plans, and a section is where it cuts through straight through the building, so you can see where all the doors and windows, how high they should be, and it's very helpful, but we haven't been supplied that by the architect. So I'm just going to guess, but we won't see the interior anyway, so it doesn't matter so much, as long as it looks about right. But that is information that you should ask your architect. That is information you should ask your architect if you are missing that information. So what I'm doing here is selecting both two doors, and then I'm going to do bridge face, and then we have the door. We're going to do the same for all of the doors. Okay, there we go. And now what I'm going to do is cut out the windows. So let's go top view. Actually, let's go bring back this floor plan so we can see what's going on. Okay, so what we have here is a window, and we should probably find out how high the window is. So if I go to the elevation, we can see that this window, which is this one, sorry, I've already looked at this plans quite a lot, so I know which window is which, but this is this side of the building, and it's this one, and it starts at 0.5 meters off the ground. So let's just add a loop here. Actually, to keep this cleaner, I'm just going to add a cut across here, because like I said, we're going to have n-gons. Do SZ0, GZ, and then GZ 0.5, right? And then this part is going to be 2.45 meters tall. So let's use this loop, GZ 2.45, and then we have that. To be honest, we could have done the same for the doors with the cuts, but never mind, we got that. Oops. So let's select this window and press E to extrude it this long. All right. Now let's do the same for these windows. Let's extrude these out. I'm actually going to bring in this one as well, so that I can see when it's overlapping, because that's quite important. Just going to select these. Right. So now we have the interior section, we have the exterior section, and the floor plan. But what I need to happen is that it needs to overlap like this, because that will help us a little bit later with making the cuts. So let's select this one and just check that this is going to be overlapping like that. Right. This one is going to be this section, and that needs to extrude to here. Is that right? That is right. And then this one needs to also extrude to here. That should also be overlapping. Perfect. Now I know there's a window here as well, but this window is a little bit different, and that is this one, which is 1.35 meters off the ground. So I actually forgot to do the loop cuts here, so let's add a couple of loops. And okay. And then let's just do a quick cut across here. SZ0, oopsie, SZ0, and then we want that to be 1.35, GZ 1.35, GZ, and that needs to be 1.65, GZ 1.65. Okay, and then I need to extrude that out, and I'm just going to extrude that to here. Right then. That's looking very beautiful and glitchy, so that's just what we want. Now we have the front door, which is this one, so that will also extrude to here. And then we have this side window, which actually I need another loop cut. Let's just move this one up. This will actually be also to the height of here. So let's just do that, and then we can actually need another loop here, because the end of the window actually stops here. So I forgot to add a loop. Let's just do the loop here. Then we can extrude this one out. There we go. And then we can do the same for this one. It needs to be extruded out. And that is also nice and glitchy. Okay, great. So now we have the windows. So we can just delete these. Actually, let's keep these selected for now. And then we go into the exterior and let's delete them together. So we need to actually move this one up, because then we can work on each face together, then we know what's going on. This is actually a missing piece, so let's just EZ, because this is a very specific window. Let's just bring that up like that. Okay, and then let's select them both again, then let's select these faces. Okay, there's another window hole. So I was going to do this with Boolean, and it should work, but Blender's Boolean, for some reason, I always struggle with. It just never seems to work how I want it to. Okay, so that's that one. Alright. Oh, this one actually needs to have... This actually should stop here as well, so let's just delete that face like that. There we go. And we got some funky faces going on here, but it doesn't matter because we won't see it, and engons and all this stuff doesn't matter. And this is going to be this part. Let's just bring this up. And if you don't like these edges, you can actually just select everything and press X and click Limited Dissolve. Then it will remove all these unnecessary faces that look quite ugly. But I'm just going to leave them in for now because we might need some of these loops later to make it a bit easier to cut out some windows. So that's looking great. You might think this looks like very strange and wrong, but it's actually right, because if we come out and then just press this, we can see that because we've already added this top level, it fits perfectly to here. And then then it goes up to make these inside sections. So we're actually going to fill in these top bits, and then we can see if there's any bits we need to fix. So let's just go into this mode, just select all these top faces, and so this should be 5 centimeters higher than the rest. Okay, so that's good. And we can see that, yeah, this wall maybe needs to come up just a little bit like this to make the edge of this window, and this one too. Okay, so that looks good. We now have windows on every side, and that's looking great. I'm just going to add the floor now, and this is quite fun to do. It's quite satisfying. There we go. We have floor. Right, and we can actually walk around the house if we want to. So if we do press Shift F, or I think I've assigned that myself, view navigation, walk navigation. You can press Shift F and press Tab, and then you can actually walk around. So we're going to each room, see how things look. Very lovely, very lovely. And then go around to, oops, fell out of the room. Okay, so that's fine. Now I'm going to work on the floor above. Okay, so it's the same process. So what I'm going to do here is just add a mesh, add mesh, add single vert, and just going to snap that to here. And then I'm just going to do the same thing. Go to each window, go around each room, go to the edge of each door, and go like this. So this, I imagine, should have been a window, but it's actually just going to be these panelings here. So there's only one small window in this whole bedroom, which might be a bit sad, but never mind. So let's just do this. Ooh. Okie dokie. Oh, that's funny. There's something to snap to here. Okay, and I'm going to go down to this one, and connect. Right, now I just need to do the same thing for the next few rooms. Extrude, 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 extrude. And this is going to be the start of this door, which is going to be quite small edge. Probably don't even need that, because actually I'm just going to go to here, because this whole section is going to be filled in by the window. Okay. And these stairs I'm going to ignore as well, because I'm not going to add the stairs in this one. We're not going to see the inside, and I don't really have time to go over that in this tutorial. So let's just leave that blank. If you wanted to add it, then feel free. And probably actually can do a tutorial for that. Let's just go round, round, round. Okay. Oh, that needs to go there. And then there is this inside section, which I think is meant to be where some light will come in from the roof above. So I imagine the top part of the roof will have a hole, and then that's when this window will be able to look out to that hole. We won't see that in any of the renders, so I'm just going to leave that out. So this is going to be a step, actually. but I'm just going to just make sure I leave a vertex there so there's something to use if we need to. But I'm just going to go around, and I probably won't add the step. Okay. Again, we don't have the section that cuts through the plans, so we can't see how big the step is. I don't think there's any information, but we'll have a look in a second. Okay, we have all the walls created, so let's find out how high this should be. So if I actually select, if I go to here, let's have a look. So I believe, so the architect has told me that these lines refer to the top of the floor, the top of the ground floor, and the bottom of the top floor. So this is where the flooring is for this floor. But the problem is that this is the balcony. So I imagine that the balcony will be inset down here. Yeah, so the balcony will be like, will start about here and then go up to the edge of the balcony, which will be this section. So this step might be like 15 centimeters, then this might be another 15 centimeters, so that'll be 30 in total. But this, I think I'm just gonna move this down to like this level and then just make this completely flat. There'll be a railing anyway, but that is a question to ask the architect, and you'll have a section that goes through usually, so you better check that. But just for this tutorial, I'm just gonna go from about here. So if I select what I've just created, which will be this, which will be this section, I'm going to go to the front view. I'm just going to bring that down, GZ minus 0.15. Oh, minus. So that's 15 centimeters down. But then I can see that there is actually, this floor is actually 2.8 meters tall until it hits the ceiling. So if we do EZ 2.8, we can put that here, and then I think that should be fine. And then that will be, then there is actually a step here which we can add if we need to, but I think that's fine. So that is going to be the interior. I've actually forgot to do this wall, this ceiling, so let's just go into here and just extrude these out. Fill that in. Okay, so now we have this interior wall. So let's grab this one and the outside wall, and then we can just try to add the doors and then add the windows and then cut them out just like we did in the bottom one. Oh, I should probably grab the floor plan. Okay, so like before, the doors are probably going to be about 2 meters up. So let's do GZ2, and then we can then do the same for all of them. Let's just do SZ0 to make sure they're on the same level, and then we can do the same thing. GZ2, and then we can merge these bridge faces, and we can do Shift R to copy that action. Okay, so we have all the doors done. So now what we want to do is the window holes. So let's go top view and let's have a look here. So my understanding is that these windows will be on the exact top level of, so where we've done that cut, where this section is 0.8 meters tall, the windows will stop just here. So I believe that is the same case here. Yeah, so all these windows on the top level will stop just at the top level here. So I'm going to add some loop cuts to all of these. We probably can just do these single cuts like I did before, but I found this might be a little bit quicker just for this tutorial. Let's bring it down so it's exactly in level with this, and then we can start doing some cuts for the windows. I also need to probably do the lower levels, but which we can do here. So that will also start right at the bottom, so we can just snap that to the bottom here. Right, so let's just do some extruding, and just do these for these ones. And we'll cut those out in a second. Let's do this one. These windows here. Sorry, I have already done this a couple of times, so I do know where all the windows are. But you just want to double check against the floor plans to make sure that you are doing the right bits. Okay, now we have the windows. So I'm going to select this one. I believe that is the window, and I want to just extrude that out. Okay, and the same for this one as well. Oh, I need to actually add a loop cut here to make sure that this is going to be extruding out. There we go, and there's not any windows here. So now we can start doing some cutting. So let's select both of them at the same time. Delete the face, delete these two faces, and same here. And we can do the same here. Okie dokie, and a couple more. There we go. There is actually a window here, but you won't even see that one. That was right in the back of the building, so I'm just going to leave that to... Oh, I actually did cut it. Never mind. So let's just see how this is looking. And we have all these outdoor sections, so let's just see if that all aligns nicely, which it should do. There we go. So we have this section. So this room goes up, because it actually, the room stops a little bit higher. Actually, because that one is 2.8, and I actually made this a little bit higher than it should be, because I actually went down by 1.5. I went down by 0.15 instead of this much. So that's actually made that a bit taller, but that doesn't matter. Let's just keep that as it is. Okay, so now I'm just going to quickly fill in these top roof sections. And also give it a floor. Okay, and as this is... Okay, there's a little bit of gap here, so let's just... I just found that these vertices are not actually aligned, so let's just scale these on the z-axis and then snap those. There. Okay, great. So this is now looking pretty good. We have the interior for all the walls, and all the windows are now cut out. So now what I'm going to do is actually, if I join everything together, I can then add a bevel to everything. So let's just make these one object and then turn on the bevel. Now we might not see anything because there might be some bits which Blender is going to be creating the n-gon with a very strange triangle. So that's pretty easy to fix. We could just go to turn off clamp overlap, and we're going to turn it right down anyway. So 0.001 for example, or 0.01, and that's looking good. If you did want to smooth the edge, you can do shade auto smooth, and then you could just make sure good shading and turn on harden normals. Right, now that's looking great. So there might be some very small sections which might have some, actually we might need to check the face orientation. Okay, so let's just select everything, do Shift N, and that's actually, these ones need to be the other way around because they are interiors. So let's just do Alt N, flip, and there we go. So this is now looking great. So the artifacts from the bevel are now fixed. There might be some very small errors where we're doing a clamp overlap, but in general that looks great. And like I said, we can do render preview with this material and it's all just working great. We're not having any problems with any weird unwrapping. We've not even unwrapped the whole object and yet it's working perfectly fine. Right, so now we need to work on the windows. There is one piece which we need to actually do first, and that is going to be adding this floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new vert. And then I'm going to work my way around here. Okay, then for this next piece, which is going to be like this whole section, which I just realised that this whole piece is going to be all connected, so let's just do this. And I imagine okay, and then let's add a cutout for the pool. So I imagine this will be the cutout actual part, and then the outer bit is going to be the frame. Okay, and let's select everything. Let's just I'm just going to extrude this centerpiece out. I think there is actually a way to make that already cut out correctly, but I'm just going to type in boolean, intersect that. There we go. Okay, so now let's add in the windows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use ones from iMeshh. You can use any windows you like. They also don't need to be as complicated because they're going to be quite far away from the camera anyway. But for ease, I'm just going to use pre-made ones. So I'm going to go to architectural, and I'm going to go to Windows. Shoot. And I believe that these windows are actually two pieces, so one piece, two piece. Select this one, and then add that in. Now, these are going to be too small, so let's just make these bigger. Select all these top vertices and just drag this up to the top. Just so it overlaps a little bit. Okay, and then let's rotate them. And they're also going to be slightly too thick, so let's just figure out where these can go. So let's put these on this. So there's a little lip here, which I imagine would be the start of the room. Let's put that there. Bring these over a little bit. Okay, and then we can extrude this out. So if you look on the bottom of this window, there are actually some wheels, some runners, which if you really want to spend the time to add them all back in, you can, but I'm not going to bother. Let's just bring this over. So these windows need to be exactly the same widths. So what I'm going to do is just bring this one over to this one. Something like here. Then I'm going to select both of them. And then what I'm going to do is go over to here and just see where, let's just hide this one. And then if I go to where this is here, that should be halfway. This one, I'm just going to bring over a little bit more. All right, let's unhide that. And then I can move this window open to open it a little bit, whichever one you want, maybe this one. Okay, then let's copy this and move that to this window. So I think these windows in general are too thick because they're overlapping here. So let's just select these windows here, and I'm going to go do shift right click to bring the cursor here. Then I'm going to scale them in the y-axis so that they don't completely overlap this bit. All right, let's do the same for this one. Now the customer should actually send you which windows they actually want, and then it should be a lot more precise, but we won't really see it from this distance, so it doesn't really matter. Let's bring this over here. Let's bring this frame in. All these wheel runner things are going to be left behind, but never mind. You could probably remove them actually. Let's just put that here. Let's just delete these. Okay, and then I want to select these windows and do the same again. Let's bring this over to, let's see if we can see where it should be, like here, and then hide this and bring this one over. Again, you can open one of these windows if you want to. Let's just bring this like here. And then we need the same windows for the ones above. So let's select this one and Shift D. Okay, let's bring these over. Okay, what we also have are some single windows. So what we can do is duplicate this window and just add a single window if you wanted to, or you can just add one of these windows here, because there's one up here which is actually having a door as well, which swings open. So that's the exact same thing we have here. So I'm going to add that in here and then see how that goes. So let's drop this in. Okay, this is again going to be on a little step. Let's just bring this up to like here. Z minus 90, and it's the wrong way because the door should be on the other side. Do doors usually open inwards when they're outside? I don't know. Let's just bring this across. Actually, yes, object mirror, and Y, and then the door will be going in the right place. But this door opens inwards, and this would actually be a detail which the customer would like to be correct. So just be sure that you ask which way they go, but it doesn't matter here. Let's just bring this across and bring this one up, and then let's make sure that the door is in the right place. So this is the door, and this would swing open like that, but this is the wrong way, so it'll open this way. If you really wanted to, you can flip it around the other way, but I'm not going to do that for now because I don't have time. Right then, let's bring this here. Okay, now what I have is some single windows like I mentioned earlier, so I'm just going to duplicate this piece, and I'm going to use this piece, and then I'm going to add a mirror, and I'm going to just bisect that on the x-axis, flip it, and then bring that over like this. Then we have a single window. So I'm going to apply that across like this, and then I'm just going to fix these bits. Okay, I'm going to shifty that across. I think that each window should generally be about the same size, but these ones are not. Never mind, let's bring this across. Now, as you know, this part should have a cutout where the roof goes down a little bit, but you're not going to see it anyway. And if this is going to be a door going out to here, it would be nice if this maybe had a balcony anyway, but there isn't one in the elevations, so I'm just going to ignore that for now. I'm going to copy this one, bring that down. So these window styles are actually different. They are not going to be the same. So like, for example, this has a plastic bit, this bit doesn't. So if you are actually going to see these bits, just make sure that everything is just the same. But I already had this one ready, so let's just keep using this one. And it's going to be much taller. Right, we have window. Oh, one more left. Two more left, three more left. Alrighty, and then there's one last one over here. So let's just duplicate this one. There's actually some windows across here, but I'm just going to leave them off for now because you're not going to see them and I don't really have time. Which is also something you should also prioritize. What are you doing? What has the customer asked for? And do you have time for that? Are there some shortcuts you can take? So let's just bring this in. Does that look okay from the inside? Yes. Right. Okay, so we have a building. Let's add the doors. I'm actually just going to add a couple of doors, which we will see because we won't see them all. Let's go to doors and let's add this one in. Let's just drop this over the top. And look at that, they're almost the perfect size. Let's just drop this in over here. So there's a slight overlap. Make them a little bit taller. Okay, we have a door. Ta-da! Right, so what I want to do now, I think that is probably the only door I'll see. Maybe you'll see one of these ones up here. So let's just bring this over here. Oh, this door is not the same width as the door downstairs, which is strange, but never mind, let's bring this across. Are they the same height? Okay, let's duplicate this one and bring that over there. So what you want to do actually here is make sure that the doors are going to be opening the right way, which in this case, this one is not, but doesn't matter, we're not going to see it. Right then. Oh, there's also going to be a door, I think, here, which we will see. Oh, I think it was actually me that I didn't do the doors the same width because I changed my tactic halfway through, so I apologise to the architect for complaining. Right then, what we have here is doors, stuff and everything. Okay, so the next thing we are going to work on is now we have the windows, floors, the building itself. I'm going to create the ground, and then what we're going to do is try to work on the lighting. So I'm just going to quickly select this whole section. Let's just see if this is all connected. Okay, this is all connected actually. So I'm just going to press Shift D, Shift D, P, and then select that and press right click, convert to mesh, select everything and press F, and there we go, we have the ground. So what I did was just use the plans because the detail was already there. And now what I want to do is cut out this pool area and the building area from that. So let's just select everything here and go into local mode. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this piece because then I'm going to use that to boolean. So I'm just going to remove some edges, just so we're going to get round to those in a second. And then I'm going to go right around the building and then we use that to make the cutter. So I'm just going to go right around the building. Remember, this is the ground floor section. So if you look here, I'm going around this floor, but I will make sure it's all on the same plane in a second. And then S0, make sure that's on the same plane, and then F. And then I'm going to just bring that, extrude that down. And then I'm going to join it to this piece, and then click on this one, Control L, F3, Boolean. There we go. So now we have a nice cutout, and we have this section as well. So this is going to be for the decking, this is going to be for the grass, and we have nice cutouts for all of them. For this ground, it might actually be best that it does have quads because this will be warped a little bit. So let's just, what I'm going to use here is an add-on which I have, and that is called Quad Remesh. If you don't have this, all you need to do is just do some cuts like this and make sure that it's going to be quads, because that's the easiest way to do it. But what I'm going to do is just use this one because it's a little bit easier and it works really well. So remesh. Actually, let's set this to 500. Remesh it. There we go, that's done. So we have a perfect mesh, but making quads for this is not too difficult, so I'm not going to go into that in this tutorial. But do check out this remesher if you want to, because it's incredibly good. So we have this ground floor. And yeah, so now we're going to work on the lighting. So the lighting is obviously one of the most important parts, and I'm going to use a tool built into Blender which people don't necessarily know to use, but it's super important when working for clients. And that is going to be using the sun positioner. So if you go to Edit, Preferences, and type in sun position, you can press just Save Preferences. And then if you go to the World tab, if you scroll down and go to sun position, what you can do is you can tell it exactly the coordinates for the building you're doing it for. So let's say you have a building and the customer has it facing a certain direction, like north is the front of the building. And usually the sun goes round and you can see it on the south of the building. So if it's a south-facing room for, well, at least half of the planet, we'll be getting sunshine throughout the day. But if it's a north-facing room, it won't be so good. Now, if you do the render and there's a sun going straight through the north, then they might ask some questions like, where does that sun come from? That's not really how it works. So what we can do here is, just type in anything and coordinates. So type in the city that you're in, and what we want to do is just copy this, and then we're going to paste them into here. So now we have the exact coordinates of London. So if I was to add, I'm just going to add the sun for now. I'm going to use the, let's just choose a sun, right? And then if we use a sun object select here, we can see that the sun is pointing this direction. And as we go through the day, so if I change the time, it changes the position and orientation of the sun. So it's exactly correct. Now what I want to do is I want to display north. So once we add in north here, if the floor plans, for example, have a direction for the north, so north might be another way, you can turn it so north is the correct direction to match your project. Now this is, I've never seen anyone talk about this, and I just can't stress how important this is. This is so freaking important that the sun is going to be physically accurate and correct. Right, but what we have now in Blender is a thing called the Nishita sky texture. So what I'm going to do is go to the World tab. I'm going to go to World. I have lots of nonsense here, so let's just delete everything. And actually, let's just create a new world. And what I'm going to add is a sky texture. I'm going to plug that into here. Then what we can do is we can choose the sky texture. So now if I go to render preview, we can see where the sun is. Let's just turn that to 0.1, see where the sun is. The sun's over here, and we can then change the time of day. So as it goes to like down here, it's gonna be sun setting because it's like 6 p.m. and it's in October. But if we were to change the month, so for example, it's April, May, June, the sun's going to still be quite high because it's in 4 p.m. and the sun will probably set about 8 o'clock or so. And that's true. Yeah, about 8 o'clock the sun has now set. So does this make sense? Why, how important this is? So that's what we'll be using for this project. It's not actually super important for this one because this doesn't actually exist. But whoever owns this very lovely house in London with a nice south-facing pool, is a very lucky person. But let's just work from here. So now we have the sun. What I'm going to do is try to find. Let's just change this a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to add now is a camera, and I'm going to set the focal length to, I'm going to leave the focal length to 50, and then let's just bring this out here. I'm going to go into the camera, and I'm just going to then turn off snapping, and then try to find an angle which I like. Now the aspect ratio or the image size for this project, I'm going to do, the other way around, 1920 by 1080. And then I'm going to fly around to try to find a position which I like. So I think something like this is good. What I have also done now is I've added a shift. So this was at 0, but I want the building to take up more, to be in the middle of the space, so I can shift it up like this. And shifting is very important. What you also want to make sure is that the camera is always 90 degrees. You want these edges that go straight down here to be straight. They need to be straight. If it's like this, it's a slightly different camera angle and it just doesn't look quite right. It looks very unprofessional. If you do any Google searches of any buildings online, exterior renders, 99.9% of them are going to have straight angles. Even photographers are going to fix it to be straight in post-processing. So it's very important that we have straight lines. So 90 degrees, if it's too low, then shift it into the right position. So that's what we're going to have here. Okay, so now let's try to find a time of day which we like. Now, as this isn't going to be a project for an actual customer, so it doesn't matter 100% what time of day it is, I might just actually tweak this myself to be something a little bit different. So I'm just going to disconnect that for now, because I think something like this will be better. We can find this time of day if we wanted to, because it will happen at some point, but just for quick and ease, I'm going to set it to like this. But remember that this exists is all I'm trying to say, just so everything is 100% correct. And you might think that it's actually pretty incredible, which it is. So now we have a time of day which I like. It's going to be slight evening, so that the shadows are going to be nice and long. One thing that I always try to make sure I do is that I try to have one of the faces in sun and the other face in darkness. So that's going to create some contrast. So this face is going to be in shadow, whereas this face is going to be lit up. Now I find this to be one of the things which I find a lot of people don't do. For example, they might make the sun go like this, so everything's lit up and it just looks very boring, whereas this looks a lot more dramatic. Also, sometimes the sun might be behind the building, which for this case can work, but we're missing half the building. We can't see half it's in shadow, so that doesn't work either. You might put the sun directly behind, which is a different kind of shot. It can be artistic, but to show off the building, I find in most cases can be late afternoon. You got nice long shadows. The main face is lit up, and the secondary faces are not. Okay, so that's kind of all I'm going to talk about for the sun, but I might just tweak a few of these settings because maybe I want a little bit less. So this is how blue it is, so I might just tweak that a little bit. If you don't want strong shadows, you can turn this up and the shadows will get smaller, but I think maybe something like 1.5 might be quite nice. A little bit softer shadows. Let's just play with this, I think. Let's turn the sun down a little bit. And then turn everything up just a little bit more. Because you can change the intensity, because it goes into a background node. That's kind of the overall brightness. And then this one makes the sun brightness independent. So the sun is 0, you just get an environmental light. So let's put like that. I think that's good. I think we are making some progress. So now I think I'm going to start adding trees and environment so I can get an idea of how that's going to feel. And then we can start doing the finishing touches like the interior section and everything like that. So let's move on to the trees and environment. Okay, so what we're going to work on now is the trees and environment, and we should then start seeing how that's all going to play together with the lighting. Now in my imaginary scene, it's going to be in woodlands, which is also one of the reasons why I wasn't sure how to do this tutorial, if it should be a building in situ, meaning in a real environment, which is going to be a lot of the cases, or if I should just make it up and add trees. And I think that could also be quite good to learn how to deal with a lot of trees, because they are quite taxing on the computer. So what I'm going to do is just play with that for now. Another tutorial I think I'll save for the in situ, adding the actual object to a real environment so it looks like it's part of the real environment. So what I'm going to do now is just go to iMeshh and add some trees. So I am going to go to plants and trees, and then we have a plethora of various trees. Actually, first, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to do that. I'm actually going to add the fencing. So the fencing will actually stop us from seeing some of the environment. So that's going to be quite useful to know where to place the trees. So I'm just going to find a modern one like this, and I'm going to append that in. This is a new product from iMeshh, which we released last month, a couple of months ago actually, and we found that it's just such an incredibly quick way to add fencing to your scene, and I think you will appreciate this as well. So let's just turn off the bevel actually. Let's turn it off completely because we're not going to need that for the final render. And let's just do shade flat as well, because it's going to be quite far from the render camera anyway. Right, so these parts, these are always going to be hidden from camera because they're not going to see them anyway. Let's just bring this down, and then this is the part we're going to work with. Now underneath there will be a curve. So let's actually select this piece and turn on a bounding box for viewport to speed things up. And then let's find that curve. There we go. And then I'm going to go to edit mode, and then I'm just going to bring the curve over so it fits nicely into the ground. So we can say this is the end of the property. That's where the building is going to start, and we can just bring that over. Oh, actually it looks like there's a fence here, so we could just put this here and then we know that's where a fence should be, but we won't see that. I think I'm just going to cover that with some hedges for now. I think I would like to do a second part of this tutorial where I do a render from the other side, which I might do if you guys are interested, because I think that could be quite a cool render, what I've got in my head anyway. So let's bring this over here like this. We just need to bring it like that. Okay, now once that's in place, we can then turn off this one, because we're not going to move it anymore, which is the slow thing, because there's quite a lot of geometry on this particular fence, so it can be quite slow. So I'm just going to leave that there for now. And I'm also going to turn off that north position thing. Okay, now I can start adding in some trees. So if I go to N and plants, and let's add in some trees. I think one of these was the ones I went for. Now all of these trees come with a second low poly tree. So if you have a look at it. So this one is the low poly version, and that is to go with the plugin called Lodify. Now if you have Lodify, you'll know what to do with this, but we're not going to need it specifically for this project, so I'm just going to turn that off and we just work with here. It's not 100% necessary. I have a 3070 with 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and it seems to work pretty fine. So this is quite a tall tree. What I'm going to try to do is create a little bit of a frame here, and I'm feeling like it would be nice if trees are going off into the distance, so they're catching parts of the sun, and then I'm going to add some various trees into the background too. Just trying to find an angle which might look quite nice. Okay, like that. Then I'm going to add another tree. I think maybe this one here. Okay, I think something like that's fine. And now what I want to do is start adding a lot more trees. And this is going to be where it can start getting quite taxing on the computer, but not if you do it this way. Well, this way it makes it a lot easier, but it still eventually will run out of VRAM anyway. But if I just do Shift A and add a collection instance, let's search for this tree, which is in, oh, let's move this one into a collection, which I just made. Let's move that to a new collection called iMeshh tree 2. Okay, so that's in the collection now. So if I was to do Shift A, collection instance, and then do tree, iMeshh tree 2, we can see that there's no tree because that's offset from the center. So for this tree, let's do Shift S, cursor to selected. And we want to make sure that the collection is, let's go to collections, is offset from cursor. So now the collection starts here. So now we can scale it from this point. So now we can basically add as many as we like. And generally Blender will keep up and render these without any problem. It does start getting a bit slow eventually, but for the amount of trees we need for this particular project isn't so bad. So what I'm going to do is just bring these over here and then just start populating them. I'm going to just rotate the same tree. You can scale it as well. Just bring them in. And what I'm trying to do is just try to create some sort of meadow here. Now, as the trees go back, you can actually bring them down. So you can bring them down like this. You will never be able to see that. So if I just do a few more around here to fill in the background, you won't be able to see that that tree is actually sinking into the ground. It just looks like it's part of the background. There's hedges, there's trees, there's all sorts going on. You won't be able to quite make out what's going on there. Okay, there we go. So in this preview, you can start to see that it's just looking like a bunch of trees in the background. You can't actually see that they're sinking into the ground. And I do see a lot of people, they just go further and further and further and further back. And it just looks like they're really struggling to fill in the background. And it's just very easy to do. You just move the trees down so it looks like a bush. Now I'm just gonna keep adding more trees here, and I'm just gonna see what I end up with. Okay, sorry, my camera has just died and it's struggling to recharge, so I'm just gonna go without camera for now. So what I have here, I've added in some trees which I think look quite nice around the scene. So what I've also added is this node setup here, which I'm going to explain now. So I've gone into the leaves material. I made sure that every tree has the exact same material for the leaves, because then it's easier to adjust. What I've done here is then added an object info. If I go down to this one here, you can see that each tree then has a different set of colors. Now I plugged it into a noise texture, set that to 4D, and then if I go like here, we can then adjust the W value, and then that basically randomizes the seed. So if you think that this tree should be more green and the order of them is just not quite right, you can then adjust this so it's more randomized. I then plug that into a multiply and add, which I then plug into hue. So what that does is it multiplies this value by a certain value and then adds a certain value to it. Because at 0.5, that is basically the hue exactly the same. If I was to reduce that to 0.3, let's just say multiply this by 0 and plug that in here, we're saying basically that this value here is 0.3, because whatever's being coming in here is being multiplied by 0, which is 0, and then we're adding 0.3 on top. So if I set that to 0.5, we're going to be getting the exact same value we would from here if this was 0.5. So if I plug that back into here, nothing will change. So what I'm doing here is I'm basically multiplying this by a small value, and the higher value I go, the more crazy the hue gets. So I can set this to something like this, but if I want the trees to be more green, I can then lower this value. So then I'm basically going closer and closer to 0 value on here. So if I just plug that in like this, then I can just turn this down, because I think a slightly greener version is quite nice. But I think my original value was nicer, so let's do that. So now if I change the seed, we can see all of them changing slightly, very slightly, and I think that this value I had was quite nice. And then how I plugged it in, so originally the output that was plugging into the base color was this one. All I did was add another hue saturation value node, and I plugged that into here, and then plug this node that I created into here, and then replace that like so. So what you could do is just add a hue saturate, plug it in so it's separated, and then plug this into the hue. And then I just did the same thing for plugging that into the translucent, because the translucent also has a value, a color value. So if I'm breezing over this too quick, then please let me know and I'll just explain it a bit further in the comments. But all I'm doing is adding a set of nodes just before the base color. Just before the base color is going to be hue saturation value, and we're going to use this to drive that. So that is just my little tweak to this node setup. Plug that in here, and now we have some nice variance to the trees. I'm just going to move that over here like so. So I think that might look a bit nicer. Break this up a little bit. And now what I've also added are a couple of planes. So let's see if we can see this here. And I've just brought that in just to make the outside, just to make the background even more darker. So it's going to cut off like here. It still looks like there's a lot of trees there, but you just can't quite see why you can't see that far into the forest. And it looks like it just goes further and further into the trees. I've just set the color to be a black. Now, one of the most important trees that you can add to an Archviz project, I believe, are the ones that go into the reflections. I see so many renders where let's just select all of these trees. And so we just have a sheet of sky texture. If we hide these, all that's going to be left is the sky. The windows are boring. There's nothing in the windows. It just looks like white from the sky. So what I tried to do was place some trees just high enough that you can see them in the reflection. Now it might take a little bit of play to try to figure out where they should go exactly when you're looking at the reflection, but just play around a little bit until you get the right place. Now I did the same thing for here. I wanted a little bit of trees here. Now that, I believe, makes the trees look so much more interesting. But now the next thing I quite like in these renders is going to be a really strong reflection in the glass. So I'm going to go to my view layer and just make sure that I have enabled glossy direct and glossy indirect, because we will use some of those later to really make the windows pop. So I think that's enough for the trees. As you can see here, the viewport performance is getting a little bit slow. So I don't think we actually can see a lot of these trees. Oh, we can actually see some of these. But I'm just going to hide a lot of them. Maybe add these into a secondary trees folder collection. Move to new collection, trees, background. And then I'm just going to go to the view layer and I'm just going to hide those to make the viewport a little bit better. And all the trees that we can see are going to be the ones which are going to be most important to the viewport. So that's looking good. The next thing I want to do is add the grass. So if I select the plane. So for the grass, I'm going to go to plants, and these are also iMeshh lawns. I'm going to find one which I like. I really like this mode lawn look, so I'm going to add this one. I'm just going to pen that in. Let's just bring this over here. What I'm going to do is, firstly, this is going to be quite slow, so I'm going to turn this off for now. I'm also going to turn the grass density to something like 250, and that should be fine. Maybe viewport as box for now, and then I'm going to join this one to this one. Control J. So now I can turn off this, and now what we can see, if I turn this on, there's going to be an explosion of grass. Might take a little bit of a minute, and now we can see we have some grass in the scene. Now, in some of our later grasses, we do actually have a camera culling setup. Now I'm going to show you how to add that to a geometry node setup because it's so incredibly useful, and it's very, very simple. So I'm just going to grab this one here and append that in. Then I'm going to go to geometry nodes and just find make sure I've got that one selected. Okay. Then what I'm going to find is the camera culling setup and the delete geometry and this switch. So I'm just going to do Control C for that one, and then I'm going to go to the original one, and I'm just going to do Control V. So this is everything that we'll need to do camera culling. So the original geometry will come in and plug into the delete geometry, and this will be deleted if it's being culled by the camera. So we can preview that by plugging that into this one and turning that on. Now we need to make sure that we select the right camera. So this camera is called camera, of course. So let's just choose camera. And there we go. We can see what's being culled by the camera, and it's that easy. We also have a switch, so we can turn that on and off. So if I put this like here and plug this one into here. So this is saying the original geometry node setup, which is the final node before it goes into the group output, is going to go into switch. If this switch is disabled, then it's going to be continuing. Oops. Then it's going to continue to the group output, and it's not going to be affected. If the switch is true, then it will go through this and be deleted. Now, this is super helpful, because as you can imagine, how much geometry is being removed and how much faster your viewport will be simply by using this setup. So it's just these 3 nodes, which you can get from any of our later ones. We really should go back and update our old ones, but these are there and it's super easy to use. And I guarantee that you might need to use this for any setup you create with geometry nodes in the future anyway. So let's go into camera preview. Let's just make sure that the field of view is the same as what we have right now. Okay, and then what I can do is, what I want to play with is this setup here. So I want to turn off viewport as box so we can actually see the actual grass. Okay, then I'm just going to preview. Okay, and now what we can see is very lush grass. We can't quite see the stripes. So what I'm going to do here is just try to increase the size. I'm just going to, I think going lower increases the size. So let's do 0.25 and see if we can see that. Okay, we can start to see the stripes appearing, but we might need some more density. But as you can see, this is quite slow on the performance. So what I usually do is just get it to the right value, then just turn it off for the viewport. So I'm going to set that to like 500. Okay, I'm also going to reduce the subdivision for this ground because I've already added quite a lot of faces, because this subdivision is basically used for the displacement. So I think that's a bit too much. So okay, so I was really struggling to figure out what was happening there, because every time I was increasing the displacement, the object was flying downwards and going upwards based on the displacement, which wasn't happening in the previous version of Blender. So what I found is that there has been a change into geometry nodes, so we might need to fix that. So as you can see, when I have this enabled, it's actually going lower than it should be, and I remember fixing that. So if you go to geometry nodes, if you go right to the very beginning, you find this node and just turn that off. And then we can see that if no matter how much we add, it's always going to be based on basically 0. So let's just put something like here. Right, so that works better. Now let's just bring this up maybe a little bit more, and let's just turn this down slightly. something like this. Now this piece will actually be thicker anyway, so it doesn't matter if we'll be able to see through it. And then, right, so now we have the grass. I've just turned it down for the viewport performance, but let's just do another preview and see how that looks. Okay, it's looking quite nice. I think that this can do with some more displacement, so let's add some more displacement here, because I think that that kind of makes the ground look a lot more natural. Okay, that's not enough. Let's do 0.1, see how that looks. Okay, that's maybe a little bit too much, but you can already see that it adds quite a cool effect to the grass. 0.05. And that might be enough. Let's actually go 0.075, halfway between the two. And there we go. That's, I think, great. So this grass looks quite lively. It looks maybe like it's just been cut badly. But one thing I do want to change is these trees. I think they're cutting too much shade into here. So let's just remove those. Let's turn off the grass for the viewport for now. In some of our later ones, we do actually have a point cloud preview, which makes it so much faster. This is just an old one that we need to update. Okay, so let's grab these trees and let's move these back ever so slightly. Is it these ones? Okay, it's not that one. Ah, it's these ones here. So let's just grab these and move these back like this. Okay, so that's better. So now we should be able to see a lot more of the lush green grass. Okay, cool. Now if I turn on the tree's background, we should be able to see that we're starting to get close to a finished product. So the things which are missing now are going to be the furniture, the interior stuff, the swimming pool, and then some more bushes and trees around the building. And then we're pretty much there. I think the hardest part is always going to be the modeling, the actual building itself. Once that's done, you have a lot more artistic flair on the rest of the stuff. So yeah, let's move on to that for the next step. Let's work on the interior furniture. All right, so let's start the decoration, which I think is one of the more fun parts of this. I think the modeling is rewarding once it's done, but I personally like the more artistic side of things. So let's actually just hide the floor plans for now, and then let's get going. So I'm actually going to move these other trees to another layer because they're slowing down my scene. Let's just select all of these and to move them to new collection and call them trees foreground. And let's hide that. Okay, so this is a little bit faster. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to start adding some flooring. Now this whole area, I'm going to just make decking. So what I'm going to do is add in some iMeshh floors. So these are the wood floors which you have available for iMeshh, and I think, well, I don't just think, we've been told by a lot of people that these are one of the best floor systems available for Blender, and we would like to agree. So I'll show you how these work. We have 1K, 2K, 4K. 1K is actually probably more than enough for this project because each plank has its own texture. So if we go to here, each plank, that's a 1K texture on its own, and you'll only be viewing it from over here. So you'll never see that it's not a 1K. So if I go to render preview as well, it will look perfectly fine. From like this distance, it looks great. Unless you're going to go this close, you probably need a 4K, but from any other distance, it's going to be fine. So let's just tweak this a little bit. Let's just add some grout, more grout here. So we can actually see the individual planks. Just going to turn the bevel off for viewport, and then I'm going to add some more height to it. Something like that. So we can imagine that's decking. I can maybe change the length to maybe 2 meters and this to 0.25 meters. So they are nice planks. And usually decking also has the row offset to be like 0. So let's set that to 0, or we can also do 0.5. Oops, sorry, 50%, which is also quite nice. I think that'll be fine. This actual standard panels has its own parameter just for that, because the other two do not need it. So these are the other values we can add if you want to know how a wood floor system works. So it's like any immediate wood floor you could ever need, just like that. So we're going to go back to this floor plane which we have, and we're going to attach this one to this one. Control J. And then I'm just going to remove this one. Oops. And there we go. We have the decking. So I'm going to rotate that by 90 degrees. And there we go. We have perfect decking. If I do render preview, that will automatically already look great. This might be a little bit too crazy for a texture for some wood decking, but I think that would probably be fine for this render. So let's just come up here. I might tweak that a little bit later. So now what I want to do is also make the interior floors have a similar thing. So let's just select this building. Then I'm going to select these floors. And let's actually do this one. So what I'm doing is selecting one floor and doing Shift G and clicking coplanar. Then that allows me to select the whole floor. Then I'm just going to separate it. Separate. And then we have these two floor planes. I'm just going to separate this one. So we have two. Then I'm going to look for another wood floor, which I like. And I quite like one of these, like this one. Again, I'm just going to add a 1K because it's not necessary. And I'm going to attach that to this one. Control J. Then go into edit mode and delete this one. For the interior floor, I'm just going to turn off the bevel completely because it can just be a like a laminate floor, for example. And sorry, let's add that into this one like this. I messed that up a little bit, sorry. So I'm just joining the floor to the actual geometry node setup. I'm going to turn off the bevel completely because that's quite slow, and then I can just delete this one. Now you might need to quickly update it by turning it off and on again. Then that should tell it that there will be geometry nodes on it. Okay, I'm just going to set that to 2.5 meters by 2.5 meters. Oh, sorry, 0.25. All right, now if I do render preview, we should be able to see how that looks. And there we go, we have all the individual planks, which looks pretty good. And then what I'm going to do is do the same again. So I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to join this one to this one. Then I'm going to delete this bottom one. Okay, let's select this one again and just turn it off and on again to give it a nudge, just to tell it that there should be something there. There we go. And I believe that the pattern should be going this way if it's a wood floor. I think that is how it should go against the window, but maybe I'm wrong. But I think to me this will look better if the wood plank's going that way anyway. Not like we'll see it anyway, but we'll just leave that like it is. Right, the next thing I want to do is add a kitchen. Again, with iMeshh, like I said, we have basically everything you'll need to do any projects like this, especially interior projects. I'm just going to add a kitchen. Let's just find any kitchens, full kitchens. And I'm just going to add this one, for example, and add that in here. Right, let's just bring this up. I'm just going to do a really quick and dirty job here, but you really should try to make this work a bit better than I am. Just going to bring that over here. Okay, and then these bits we won't see, so I'm just going to delete these. This is hanging outside the building, so I'm just going to bring these across like this. And please do this more appropriately for your project. Let's just bring this. This is a lamp, so let's bring this over here. For this lamp, I'm going to go to lamp settings, use nodes, color. I'm going to change that to black body. I'm going to set that to 3800 Kelvin. That will be like a warmer light, which is going to be quite nice. Okay, so now we should be able to see from the camera view that there's a bit of a kitchen going on there. We won't be able to see very much, but that is going to be that. Next thing I want to do is add a sofa. So seatings, sofas, we just have a few. I'm actually just going to quickly go to my preferences panel and change thumbnail scale to like 6, I think. Okay. And then just choose a sofa. So I think this one is good. It just needs to be a really, really basic sofa, just so you can get the idea that there is a sofa there. It should already be on the floor. Yeah. Okay, then in the front, I'm just going to add some tables and chairs. So let's go to tables and dining tables, and we're going to select perhaps I'm going to choose this one for now, just because it's already dressed. It's like a table all ready to go with all the chairs. Okay, just checking it's actually on the floor. Move that here. For the back wall, because if I go to render camera view, there's going to be a big empty space here. So I'm just going to add something to the wall here. I'm going to go to decorations and frames. I'm just going to add this one. Boom. There we go. Let's go to camera view and just see if that's big enough. Something like that is great. And then what I also want to do is add a lamp. I hope that you can see the power of iMeshh now, because this is one of my most favorite parts of the whole project. Of course, you should probably spend a bit more time doing this, but I've already done this, so I do actually know the ones I want to add in. I'm going to add in this lamp and just bring this down like this, and then I'm going to rotate this because it looks better when it's like that. Again, this lamp that comes with it, this lamp, I'm going to set that to be GeoNodes, color, black body. So a lot of our newer lamps, we do actually set this already, but this is some of our old things. And I'm going to change that to be a value like 20. Now, while I'm at this point, so their light might be on inside the building because it's going to be going into the evening. And if you, so there's an argument where visualizations, exterior visualizations shouldn't have interior lights on if the sun's up. But how many people turn the light on during the day, especially coming into the evening, when the sun is still up? It still happens, and I think sometimes it can add a really nice effect. It can be a really nice orange light coming from the building, and maybe a nice purplish sunsetted light coming from the outside. So we'll just leave that on. We'll see how that looks. Maybe I'll change that, but I think some light can add some life to it. You don't want it to be super, super bright where the interior is brighter than the sun, but I think to some level it does work quite nice. So, and then up here into these bedrooms, I'm going to add a bed. Bedrooms, beds, and then I'm going to select, I think, this one. I said 90, and just bring that across. I don't know if we'll quite see that. Okay, we'll see the edge of it, which is nice. So it's Alt-D that. Alt-D is very, very important because it keeps the geometry and it doesn't duplicate the whole geometry. So especially for something as high poly as this, using Alt-D, we have a video about that on iMeshh, about it's called, I think, you're duplicating wrong. It's very, very important. So Alt-D, bring that down here, and bring this in. Right then. I think that's enough for the interior stuff that we will see. So if I come out, view the camera, you can just click this button, and we can see here. I think that's enough. Now, the one thing I think adds one of the most important interior objects to your scene is going to be curtains. And go to curtains, and I'm going to choose this one from iMeshh. Local mode. We don't need any of this stuff. We're not going to see the interior of the building anyway. I'm just going to even delete one side of it, so we just have one side. And then I'm going to place them into the window. So I'm just going to bring this up and scale it down and rotate it. And then bring it up against the window and then scale it in. So scaling curtains and fabric items is very easy for it to look natural. A lot of other objects in Blender, when you scale them, they look stretched, but in curtains, you can usually get away with it quite well. So let's scale this in a little bit. I'm going to do Alt-D again and bring this over here, something like this. And I'm going to do Alt-D, bring it across to this one. I'm going to stretch this one out a little bit more, so it looks like a slightly different one. Maybe bring it slightly closer to the window. I'm going to do Alt-D again and scale it in this time. Maybe scale it on the y-axis, so it's a bit different. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing again downstairs. So I think we just need like couple of curtains. Let's just, oh, I did Shift-D. Alt-D that, and bring that in here. If you were going to see the interior, of course, you should actually add some curtain rails, but we don't see them, so we're not going to. And let's do Alt-D across and bring that over here. And Alt-D. And we could actually add a blowing curtain here because the window is actually open. So let's just bring that over here. Something like this. Okay. And the final curtain is going to be this one over here. Again, this could be a blowing curtain if you really wanted it to be. Of course, you can add more curtains for more variation if you really wanted to. But actually, there's a couple more I might want to add up here. I just really think curtains are super, super, super important. So let's just keep adding them in. And bring this up. Okay, where will we see this? Let's scale on the y-axis. Okay, let's go here. Quite a tall one, so let's do that. And let's just Alt-D and bring that in here, and Alt-D and bring that over, just so it's smidge showing up here. Right, so we have curtains and it have all sorts of other decorations. I'm not sure about this one now because it is in the way of the window, but because if the door is open, then they probably need to walk through there. That'd be fine. Right, so let's do a preview. Okay, that's great. I'm just going to turn on the tree's foreground because I want to see the shadows that it's casting, because that will help us to see into the building a little bit more and hopefully show off some more curtain. Okay, so I think these curtains need to be maybe a little bit lower to the ground, and this one as well. So they're just touching the ground. And okay, I think that's fine. Right, the next thing I want to do is add some railings to the top. So I'm going to again go to iMeshh, Geometry Nodes, and select the glass railing here, append. And then I'm gonna just select this. Let's just move these pieces out of the way. We won't see them anyway. You should just put them into a collection that you won't see. But just for this tutorial, because it's quite quick, we're just gonna move that out of the way. Right, let's select this curve. Let's bring this up. Bring this in. And bring this across like that. Let's bring this out a little bit, something like this. Okay, let's delete this one, and we're going to add this one over here. Right, so now we have a railing. You might want to add one here if you actually wanted to add the floor piece here, but I think having it just white is quite nice. And now what I want to add is this wood paneling, which again, we have a piece. I think that one is in architectural decorative. There it is. And that is simply just wood slats. So let's bring this up. Oh, sorry, grab the curve. There we go. Sorry, let's just select the original object and turn off any bevel. The scene seems to be going quite slow. Okay, and let's go into edit mode and bring this across. And delete this one. Actually, let's bring this one across to here because that's where this window is. Then I'm just going to do Control L. Actually, this one, Shift D, bring that across, and then I'm just going to bring that to here. Bring this one across, and then bring that down, just so it's below the window. Okay, and I'm going to select this one as well, and I'm just going to bring them in a little bit more, like that. Okay, so that looks like some wood paneling. Next thing I'm going to do is just do the same thing, duplicate this, bring this up upstairs. Shift D, bring this up. Shift D is okay for geometry nodes because it's always using collection instances and instanced objects, so you never have any problem with too much geometry, which is great. Okay, there we go. So now if we go to preview, it's amazing how fast it goes together when you've got all the assets that you need. Okay, that's looking great. Everything's starting to be filled out. So we do need some stuff on the balcony on the top, and then we can work on the materials and then work on the pool, and then we're pretty much there. So let's keep going. Okay, so I'm gonna just add some exterior objects. This is quite a big patio. This is quite a big area outside, so it might be a bit too big for certain things. So let's just see how this is looking. From this angle, it doesn't look so big, so that's okay. Let's add this umbrella. Then I'm gonna add a couple of deck chairs. Now, for all of these objects, actually, I'm just gonna make sure to turn off any subdivision modifier. Oh, these are old ones. I think these ones have been cleaned up a little bit, but let's just make sure we don't have any subdivision modifiers on these, because we don't need them. We're this distance from the camera. These are already, this one I can turn off. We could probably also turn off the bevels here because we don't need them either. Let's just make sure we do shade auto smooth and do the same here. Because it's so far from the camera you won't see it. If you're going to do some close-ups, then feel free. Right. Let's just rotate these into place. Okay, let's view from the camera view to make sure they're nice positions. Okay. Now I think I'm going to add a coffee table. It's a nice wooden one to go with our wooden aesthetic that we've got going on a little bit. I'm going to turn off the subdivision for this one too. And then what we can add here is just some drinks. So I'm just going to go to here and go to dining or food and drink. Yeah, let's add just some bottle of wine here. Right, nice. They like to drink because they brought 2 bottles of wine. So if you're in doubt, bring 2. And then over here, what I'm going to add is, let's just move this one out of the way because we don't want to see it. It's also going to be hidden from camera automatically anyway. But what I want to add is some outdoor seating and an outdoor eating area. So let's go to chairs. Find a chair which can be used outdoors. I think this one is quite a nice outdoor chair. So outdoor chairs usually have a lot of wires and strings because they don't go moldy if the padded areas were outside. Okay, so we can add in this chair, and then I'm going to add in a table so we can put the chairs to the table. So let's go back to tables and select dining tables. And I think I'm just going to go for a simple one. This one will do. Actually, I think we have one which may be more suited to exteriors. This one here. Okay, let's add that in. Rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm just going to select this one, Alt D, oopsie, rotate it 180 degrees. And then again, Alt D, rotate that 90 degrees. So I always like adding like a table and chairs if possible to the outside. It just adds life to the exteriors. You want to try to imagine the kind of life that someone is going to be living here. So it's always quite important to add this stuff. Now, what you can also do, I think there might be too many legs going on here. This is just getting way too complicated. So let's remove these. And then what I'm going to do is just maybe rotate these ever so slightly. So they're not completely even. Okay, then that looks a bit less busy, which is nice. Alrighty then. So the next thing is some life up here. Now this is a balcony as well, so we can add some things as well. So I'm going to add a dining chair. Now this level I think actually needs some more work, but we're not going to see it in this particular render, so I'm going to leave it. But you might need to cut out this floor and add some tiling. But for this, I'm just going to leave it as it is. So I'm going to go to seating, lounge chairs, and I think we have one which is quite nice outside. This one here. It's like a nice outdoor bucket chair. If we go to camera view, just bring that maybe closer to the window. Is that like that? Oh, sorry, I need to bring this up a little bit. Okay, and Alt D that, and then rotate that as well. So So it looks like a nice little seating area up there. What I'm going to add now is some plants to the upside area, because I also like, you know, balconies. Imagine what you're going to have up there. Some people are going to grow some plants. You want to have a little bit of a life up there. You can sit up there, have a drink, and you've just woken up. It's the morning. You want to have some nice time out there. So I'm going to go to plants and see if there are any nice potted plants we can quickly add. Let's just go to all plants. Now we might actually be able to add some of these plants. You might not actually see that they are not in a pot, but I'll just have a quick look here first. All right, I'm just going to add one of these and see how that looks. If we see the pot, we do actually see the pot. Okay, so let's just add that one in. I'm going to add in another one here, add this one. Also just going to make sure we have all the subdivision modifiers just turned off, because we're really not going to see it from this distance. Okay, we can scale it down a little bit. All right, so that's like that. And then what I'm going to add is also maybe some bathroom decorations, if we have some towels. Okay, so I'm going to add a towel to the outside of this swimming pool, because that's always going to be nice to have. I'm just going to add a couple. So let's go into here. Let's select, I want the white one maybe. And then maybe I can just select these ones, delete them. So it's just a couple. And again, we could probably get away with turning off the subdivision modifier. Maybe something like that. I think that's fine actually. Actually, let's have a look in the camera preview how that looks. I think I might actually add it over here, because it's a bit more empty space. So let's just drop that over here. Maybe I can add another element over here just to show that someone is probably going to go swimming there. What I could add a duffel bag perhaps. That might show someone's just arrived. Maybe they're just going to get all their swimming stuff out. I think that's nice actually. Okay, I think we're going to go for that. I think that looks quite nice. Someone's just going to go for a little swim over here. They got all the stuff prepared. And now I'm going to add the swimming pool and see how that goes. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this shape. Let's just go into local view here to speed the viewport up. I'm going to select these edges, do Shift D, Enter P, and then to separate that, and then grab this edge, delete geometry nodes. Then we have the pool thing like this. Now I'm going to scale this up. I do think there is a way to scale this uniformly, so each edge gets scaled outwards the same distance, but I can't remember what the shortcut is. So I'm just going to do this for now. Just eyeball it like that. And then I'm just going to bring this up and then extrude that down. So this will be the pool. Let's maybe bring this down a little bit like here. Then I'm going to inset it. And then, oh, maybe not that much. Press I to inset and then extrude this down. So that will be the pool. I'm then going to do Shift D and duplicate that, bring that on the Z axis up to something like here, just close to the rim. Press P to separate. So this is going to be the water. So what I'm going to do here is just try to make some squares, then do W, subdivide a few times. Okay, we can then add a subdivision modifier. Set that to simple. So it's just going to subdivide that shape like quite nicely. Then what I'm going to do is go and add a displace and set this to new. Then what we're going to do is just press U and unwrap that, so it gives us more ways to work with it if we want to. So I'm going to set the displace to UV coordinates, and then click here to change the texture, and change the texture to clouds. So now we can see the clouds. Now either you can change the scale here, or you can go into the UV editor and scale it here. But it's a bit harder to see what you're doing here, but it will get smaller. So let's just do it here, something like this. And we can change the scale down to something like this, shade smooth, and we have some water. Now for the shader, I am going to be using the iMeshh, of course, the iMeshh advanced glass shader. This one here, import material, And then I'm just going to go to shader editor. And if we just go into render preview, we can see that it's just a clear glass. I'm actually going to give it some shadow. Oh, I think that the normal might be facing the wrong way because it looks like glass. It looks like metal. So let's select both of these and do Shift N. There we go. So this should look like water now. Okay, for this shader, I'm just going to remove that just so it's white for now. I will be adding a plaster material to it later, but this will be working for now. Let's just turn this up. We want to give this a blue hue. Now for pools, generally, the deeper it is, the darker it gets. So what I'm going to be using the absorption amount here. So if I set that to something like 50, or sorry, 5, and then change this to a more blue color, and then the deeper it goes, the darker it gets. So we can show that by adding some steps. So what I'm going to do is just select this edge, do Shift D, and I'm just going to do really, really quick and dirty, just extrude that out. And then select these two edges. Oopsie. Please make these steps maybe a little bit straighter if you get the time. And actually, I think that will be fine. But I'm hoping this will show the absorption effect. Let's scale that out a little bit. Just nice big steps. Now if we go and render preview, you see that the step at the top has less blue, and the step as it goes down becomes more blue. I don't think we'll see it from this particular angle, unfortunately. Maybe a tiny, tiny bit there. Maybe if we turn off the displacement, we might see something. Maybe a little bit, but that's just good to know that if you're adding a pool, you can do something like this. You can also add some caustics if you wanted to. So to add some caustics for your pool, which is also very, very lovely, what I'm going to do is select the pool, go to Object Properties, go to Shading, go to Caustics and say Cast Shadow Caustics. Click on the pool itself and say Receive Shadow Caustics. Then click on the world, go to Environment, go to the World tab, sorry, click on Settings, and then click Shadow Caustics. So now this has gone completely black because I don't think it works with absorption for some reason. So if I turn that off, you should be able to start seeing some caustics. We can see some up here. Might need to turn the shadow up to full amount. I'm going to change the displacement strength to a bit lower value. Maybe that will help show them off a bit better, because I think they were getting scattered too far. Okay, so that's working really nice. So it's just a few buttons and we can get some really nice caustics in the pool. So that is using the actual sun to cast the caustics, because we did that in the world tab. Now, if I want to change the caustics a little bit, we can go to the world tab. And if we change the sun size, the caustics will change slightly. So if I set that to 10, the caustics might be too small, too faint to see. But if we set it to a really, really small value, the caustics are going to be almost pin perfect, which is also very unrealistic. So I'm just going to set that back to the value it was, 1.5, and I think that's fine. But for this render, I'm actually going to turn it off because we're not going to see anything anyway. So let's just turn these back off. But it's just nice for you to know, I guess. Let's turn that off as well. Okay, now on this pool, I'm just going to add another bit of decoration, and I'm just going to do decorations, and I think it's under toys. One of the most favorite items on iMeshh, and that is our floating flamingo. Because it always looks great. Put it a bit in the water like this. That might be too much, but let's just see how that looks. Move that out to the side. That might actually be the decoration we needed for that side. Maybe we don't even need the duffel bag. Let's just bring that down for a sec. Okay, and then let's do a render preview. See how that looks. Make sure to save it. And then I'm going to just turn on the grass as well so we can get a full idea of the preview. Alright, so this is looking pretty nice. I think what we need now is some plants to go along here and here. Maybe add some hedges to go against the fence. I might also add something to be a nice reflection here and here. Because we also have trees here, and this just looks a bit odd. It kind of looks like you can't really tell what you're looking at here. So that would be quite nice. I think this grass is looking incredibly lovely. It looks like you could just jump in it and wiggle around. And I might also change some of these colors because this is blending in too much. You can't really tell what's going on here. and this just looks a bit bland. So I'm probably going to update these, and I'm also going to add some clouds. So I'm probably going to add some clouds now and then come back to the plants and stuff a little bit later. I think that will be more of a finishing touches section. So let's add some clouds. Okay, so clouds are very, very, very far away from the camera, so that's exactly what we're going to do. So first we need to make sure that our clip start for our world is very, very far away. So this is a clip, so the viewing is visible. So let's set this to something like 100,000. And let's also set that for the camera. So let's turn on here. Let's change that, the clip end, to be something like, okay, that's 100,000 already. Okay, so let's set that to 100,000. And then I'm going to add a big, giant box. So let's actually turn this off first. I'm going to add a mesh cube, and then let's go to local view. I'm going to set that about 3,000 meters in the air. I'm going to set this to be about 50,000 meters in each direction, and maybe about 2,000 meters in size like this. I'm going to change the viewing. I'm going to add some more like this. So 1 meter clip start. Okay, and this is going to be our sky. Let's move this up just a little bit more. This is going to be our clouds, and then we need to give it a special shader. So first of all, what I'm going to do is actually set this to visibility, viewport visibility to bounds, so that it's not always visible. And I'm going to go to object, make a new material, and call this clouds. It's going to be very, very quick and easy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is add a volume scatter node. Plug that into volume. I'm going to set the density to something like 0.006. I actually saw this on another tutorial. I'll try to link it in the description so that you can visit that guy's tutorial. But it's a very, very quick tutorial, and I'm incredibly amazed at how quick it actually is. So that's going to add some density, but we want to break that up a little bit to tell it where clouds should be and where clouds should not be. So this is looking a little bit like clouds already. So let's add a color ramp. Actually, let's add a noise texture. Set that to 4D. And set the W to something like 100. I think these are fine. This is maybe the details like 25. And the roughness to, I don't know, something 0.66. And I think that is fine. I'm going to push that into the color ramp. And set that to constant. And then we're going to cut this off like this, so we can start to see that there are cloud shapes forming. Then I'm going to do Control T to add a mapping, and I'm going to set that to texture, and I'm going to set the scale to 25,000. Okay, and then I'm going to set that to object. So now if we go to here, push that into the color, and let's see how that looks. Oops, let's unplug that. Make sure to apply the scale, and then what we can do is just try to bring this down, and you start to see clouds starting to appear. Now that looks pretty natural. So what I'm going to do is pretty amazing how natural that immediately looks. So let's just go to view camera and just tweak this a little bit just to see how we feel. So I'm actually going to go back to the main scene. I'm going to select the main building and this, so we can see how that looks against each other, and try to preview this, try to get some nice clouds. If we shuffle this, we get a brand new seed basically. We can just play with that until we get some clouds. I quite like if it's mostly blue sky with a few clouds like that. This is a lovely cloud. That's almost like a classic cloud that you can imagine. And that's just 1.1.6. Let's just copy that just in case. And then let's just keep playing. It would be nice if something was like that, but maybe a bit bigger. So let's see if I can actually bring that a bit closer. Maybe this one. Okay, and bring that maybe this way. All right, I think that looks nice. It's pretty amazing because it's actually really fast at rendering as well, because the density is so low. So I think that's great. And also, if you set this to a sunset, of course, you better see the clouds and it will look like a real sunset. But these clouds, I just can't. Once I saw this tutorial and saw how easy it was to make clouds, I just thought, holy moly, Nishita sky texture with these clouds is never going to be the same again. So that's amazing. Let's go back to the main render. Clouds are done. Let's now work on the plants. Right, so let's add in a plane, and we're gonna add some plants, and we're gonna be using geometry nodes. So this is gonna be a very quick introduction to geometry nodes. Don't fear, but it's a very quick and easy way to add plants to your scene. So what I'm gonna do is just go to here. Let's just, oh, I've set the clipping to be quite high, so let's just lower this a little bit. So this is gonna be where I want the plants to be. And I'm just gonna go to vertex mode so we can see these. And basically what I'm going to tell it is wherever there's a vertex, I want there to be a plant. So let's just bring this over. And I want this to be quite an organized plant patch. So let's just bring that, let's do that. Okay. Next is that we need some plants. So let's just do Shift C. Let's put everything in the center because it's a bit easier. Ooh, a bit far away from anything now. And then I'm just going to add in some plants. So if I go to iMeshh, plants, exterior, of course, we have a bunch of plants. So I'm going to add this one. And then I'm going to add this one. I'm just going to make sure that they're all about the same height because that will look quite nice for this scene. As well. So select all these and apply the scale. And then what I'm going to do is move all of these to outdoor bushes collection. Right, with that done, let's go back to our original plane. And then I'm going to go to geometry nodes and select new. And then what we're going to do here is add a few things. So what I want to do is make an instance of one of those plants on each vertex. So to do that, what we're going to do is add a search mesh to points. So on each point there will be a mesh, instances on points. Then what I'm going to do is select outdoor bushes, drop that in here. That is the collection which I created. I'm going to drop that into instances. So now it's adding all of the instances onto each point, which is not what we want. Let's click separate children and click pick instance, but this is now going to randomize it between each of them, or it's actually going to create a cycle. I think it goes yellow, this bush, blue, yellow, this bush, blue. Yeah, it's a sequence. So we can randomize this. So what we're going to do is add a search random value. We're going to set this to an integer. We're going to set this to 0 and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4. There we go. So now this is going to be randomized between all of them. We can change the seed if we don't like it. Pretty sure that's all of them. Let's try 5. Alright, so now let's go into the camera view. We're getting some nice bushes plugged in here. And the great beauty thing with this is that they're all going to be instances, which means you can add 1,000,000 of these and Blender's only going to need to calculate one, and then so it doesn't add to the VRAM. So that is a beauty with this, and it's just super easy to do it. So let's just select all these faces, bring these all together, and now we can have some really nice plants. Look how easy that was. Now there is another method that you can do. You can randomize it a little bit. So if you want to randomize it, all you need to do is add a points, distribute points on faces, and you can set this to mesh and then plug that into here. So now this is going to randomize on the faces. You can set this to Poisson disk and set the minimum distance to be about the size of the actual object, which is probably about 50 centimeters, so they're not overlapping. And if you go into edit mode and scale this out, you get more and more and more and more. So, but I quite liked it to be ordered, so I will just stick to what I had before, and that's this. But I think I will add some more to this edge. Oopsie. All right, I think that looks great. But I can see that they are not being randomized enough. So what I'm going to do now is actually randomize the scale. Random value again, and set this minimum, plug this into here, and set the minimum to 0.75. and the max to be 1. Then for the rotation, we only want to randomize the Z rotation. So what I'm going to do is add a search random value again, but set that to a vector. So this is correct, but we want this value. This is going to be in radians. This is in degrees. So what I've typed in here is 360 degrees in radians, and that's 3.28. So let's just copy this number and plug that into here. So now that will randomize each one by up to 360 degrees. But I want to also turn off these to be 0. So now it's only going to randomize them on the Z axis. We can also tilt them a little bit if you wanted to, but that's not 100% necessary. Let's see how that looks. All right, let's bring that right over to this edge. Then I'm going to duplicate this and bring this over here. Okay, then I'm going to go top view, and I'm just going to move this over here and something like this. I'm going to go to edit mode and delete these ones. So we immediately have plants, which is fantastic. I think I might have to scale these out a little bit more. I might scale them up a little bit as well. Maximum scale like this. So they're a bit bigger. And okay. Now it looks like they kind of go around the corner. And same for here. Great, that's plants, and that is a quick introduction to geometry nodes. Right, so what we're going to do now is add the hedges. Just going to quick hedge, maybe want a low hedge, maybe this one that's a bit messy. And let's just select this one. I'm going to go to top view. Let's just delete this one. Oh, we also have this, we can probably delete again. All right, let's bring this over here. And we go to render view and bring this over here like that. These ones, let's just select these and move this out of the way because these are the actual ones which are being used to be distributed. Okay, and do we see that fence at the end? Yes, so let's just duplicate that, bring that over here. Again, these are available on iMeshh. We have maybe more exterior stuff than I realized. Right. Fantastic. Right, I think that's looking pretty tasty. We have these, we've got trees, and we have this. I'm just trying to think what else there is to do. The edging on the building itself. So to do that, I'm just going to select these edges and create some curves. So let's select these edges. And this one here, and then this one as well. I'm going to do Shift D and separate that. And then I'm going to select these and go into local mode. I'm going to select X and delete only the face. Then I'm going to convert this to a curve. Now I'm going to create a custom profile for this, which will be the edging. So let's just add a mesh cube, scale that in, apply the scale, rotate, and then I'm just going to make a simple shape like this. Oops. Just delete these edges. Right, so we have a custom profile shape, and now that is going to be sent around the curve which we just created. But to do that, we need to convert that to a curve as well. Let's just move it over here, so it's probably going to be inside the building, so we won't see it. And we could probably move that to another layer, but I'll do that another time. So click on the curve, go to geometry, click on object, and select that object. We can see that it's actually backwards. This profile is being put into this curve. So let's just go into this object and rotate this 180 degrees. Nice. So I'm going to go and add a modifier, bevel, make this a bit smaller. Okay, you can do shade auto smooth as well and set this shading to harden normals. And then if I go out of here, we can see how big it is. So that's a bit too big, so I'm going to go into edit mode, select all, and do Alt S to scale it down. I can see it's actually clipping through the building a little bit. So what I'm going to do is find the original profile and go into edit mode and move that on the x-axis. There we go. So now we have a nice edge on the building. This one is wrong, so I'm going to do Alt-T, sorry, Control-T. So I select this one, do Control-T, and rotate that 180 degrees, and then that one is then facing the correct direction too. Now for this one, I want to give it a metal material, so I'm going to go to iMeshh. I'm going to go to metals and find one which I like. I think this oxidized metal is a nice one. What I'm going to do is for this material, I'm going to change the image texture type to be box, a bit like how I mentioned before. So let's just go into preview. And set this to box, and set this to generated. Okay, let's go into camera view so we can see how this is looking. Okay, and if we set the same for these ones as well, set this to box, set this one to box. It's just a very quick way to unwrap, and we can keep it as a curve. Okay, and then if we go preview. Okay, so I think this is way too dirty. So if I just attach this and see how that looks, I think that already looks a bit better, but it's still a bit too dirty. So I'm going to add a mix shader, sorry, a mix color. And I'm going to mix that in with this one. So the more I go to the right, the more it's going to be this one solid color. The more I go to the left, the more it's going to be this texture. So I want this to be about in the middle. So I want a little bit of this color, but I want this to be whiter, because the whiter it is, the rougher it gets, because this is roughness. So a value of 1 is 100% rough, a value of 0 is 100% gloss. So if this is 100% white, that's rough, and that's gloss. So I'm going to set that to white value, and I think that looks all right. I might actually just make the material color just a little bit darker in general. Okay, fantastic. So let's come out of here. I'm going to set that viewport display under the material to be black, just so we can see what's going on here. And then I'm also going to change this window color, this window plastic, also to be like a black color. Don't go 100% black, because there's nothing in real life that's 100% black, unless it's Vanta black. And even then, that's 99.99% black. So that's done. Let's do the same for these windows, which have a slightly different color. Base color to be black-ish. And again, just so we can see if those have been updated. Okay, and all right, that is looking pretty tasty. That's looking pretty good. I think we're approaching the finish. I'm just going to add now the material to the walls. We might tweak these colors a little bit, but in general, that's looking pretty nice. That's not even with the trees on there, and I can't believe that these are procedural clouds. I think that's coming across incredibly nice. So I'm going to work on this exterior material, and let's see what we get. Actually, first of all, let's just make this chair, make the fabric just a more white color. Make fabric canvas. Let's just increase this to 5. Is that lighter now? Okay, that's already lighter. That might be too bright. They might be emitting light at that point, but I think having them lighter definitely helps. I think that this table maybe should also be like a desaturated color. Let's try 0.3 and then increase the value to maybe 1. I think that will make it a bit easier to see here. Right then, and then let's add the wall material. Right, so let's add the plaster. And like I said, we're going to be using the box unwrap method for this, so let's just call this plaster. Actually, we have a plaster from iMeshh, which I'm going to use. This is the most versatile material, and I use it all the time. So let's just go plaster. It's available, it's for free on iMeshh as well, actually. So let's do 4K, import that material, and let's see how that looks. So this is a indoor material, and it's about 1.5 to 2 meters in size, depending on how big you want the bumps, but it should work perfectly fine for this. So let's go to box unwrap for this. Box and box. Set this to generated, and then let's preview this. Now you might be thinking that the edges will have a different texture, they won't align, but this texture is so subtle I don't think you'll really be able to see it. So alright, so let's change this to maybe 0.75 to maybe make these bumps a little bit bigger. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some ambient occlusion to give it some edge wear. So let's say ambient occlusion. And I'm going to add a texture. I'm going to try to add this texture to the description, so you can all download this one. I'm going to plug that in. I think this is actually for a leather. It's a leather mask. Let's plug that into the distance and and preview this node. Set this to box and set that to generated as well. All right, so we have some edge wear going on here. So the white areas we don't want, and where there's black areas we do want. So we can blend that in with our base color by using a mix color. And I'm going to apply this one with a multiply. So if I set this to multiply and then plug this one into here, we'll be able to see that the edges then get colored. Just like this. Now this whole building has this material, so it does mean the inside is going to get this too, but we really won't be able to see it from the outside. But if you're going to do this project for real, please give the inside a different material which isn't going to be dirty. So this should add some nice edge wear here, but there's one last thing I will add to this building. See, something like that, that's quite nice. But the one thing I will add now is just like some drips, so it looks like there's been dirt going down the side of the building. And this is another texture. I think this is available from CCO Textures, but I will put a link to that in the description. And I'll also plug this one in here and preview that. And instead of doing this to the ambient occlusion, I'm just going to do this to the whole building. Set that to box. And I'm actually just going to give it its own node so I can increase the scale. Okay, and then I'm going to blend that in. Again, I'm going to use a multiply. So let's just do Shift D. And then I'm going to multiply this color in, oops. Multiply this color into here. So let's preview how this looks. We can actually increase the edge wear as well. Let's just push this up a little bit more. And we can push this one up as well. So this is going to be way too much. So let's plug this in, something like this. Then I'm going to do color ramp. Oh, if you do Shift S, it keeps the S. I think that's a bug that needs to be fixed in 4.0. Color ramp. Plug that in. And I think we can probably switch, might have to switch these around. So where it's going to be black, it's going to be white, and where it's white, it's black. Okay, start to see streaks starting to appear. Now let's see how this looks on the main material. All right, this is a really, really dirty boy. So let's see how this looks in the main render. Okay, this looks like it's a really, really old building. So that's far too much for me. If you're going to work for a client, please don't add this much dirt, because usually they want you to make a new building, and new buildings are clean. So just add a smidge to break up the evenness a little bit, something like this, where it looks like a real building. That might still be too much for some clients, but let's leave that there. You can't even see it on the front because it's so bright. All right, so that is what I'm going to do for the main material. So that's going to be the plaster, and then let's turn this off for now. And I'm going to give this one the same material. This is that I did that with the copy attributes node. So if you go to add-ons, copy attributes, you can then select two objects to Control L or Control C, and you can copy all sorts of information. Let's see how this looks. Does this have the nice material? It does. I think this might. Okay, that was looking stretched, so I've changed that to be object, and now that looks a lot better. Now for these wood panels, I do want a lighter color. So I'm just going to add a lighter wood to it, one that's a bit more interesting. Perhaps this one. But this one does have a randomized UV on it, so I'm just going to select these two and to Control C, and then I'm going to import material, And for this one, do the same thing. So just select this, plug that in instead of this one, and then plug this into the color. And then that's going to randomize the color slightly a little bit as well. So let's see how that looks. Okay, that's too much. So let's just add a hue saturation and, ooh. Oh, wow. And pull that down a little bit. Okay. Okay, so I've just added another tree reflection here, and I think that's probably fine. I think I would actually like to add more light to the interior because this is looking a little bit too dark, but I think I might actually start doing a render first and then try to increase the shadows of the interior manually rather than going through the trouble of adding lights, because there might be enough light in there already to push later on. Okay, so I found it was actually this tree casting so much shadow into it, the one which I created the reflection. So what I'm going to do is just leave that where it was, but I'm just going to turn off the shadow for that particular tree. So it's not casting any shadows, so we can see it in the reflection, but then we can keep the brightness here. Okay, so that's nice. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to probably set the render to about 250 samples and see how that comes out. I'm also going to set the render size to 200%. Now, if you don't have this panel, these figures can be found here. So that's 200% here. Actually, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to hide this because some people don't have it. Right, so I'm going to make sure denoise is turned off here. I'm going to leave it to these values for the samples, for light paths. I don't think it's necessary for this. I think that's really helpful if there are really small lights, but let's leave that on for now. And for light paths, I've got these all set to 32. I think that's quite overboard, but if you watch my tutorials, I quite like setting it quite high, so there's maximum amount of bounce as possible. Unless the render time is ridiculous, then I will just turn those down a little bit, but most of the time it's fine. Clamping is set to 0, because I don't want it to clamp any light. And these are all turned on, and I'm going to turn on simplify actually, because that will help with the render, especially we're really approaching the VRAM limit. So let's turn all subdivision to maximum of 0 for both viewport and render, and we'll see how that looks. Because we're far enough from the objects, I don't think we'll be able to see if something doesn't have subdivision enabled. If we do, then we can adjust it, but I'm going to set maximum texture size to be 2K. I think that'll also be perfectly fine. That will help a lot with the VRAM. Alright, so for film, I'm just going to leave that at 1.5. I think that is fine. And then I'm going to go down to color management, and this is what I'm going to change it. This is available in 4.0. I'm going to switch that to AGX. And I'm going to set this to, I believe I will try punchy. So you should always be using AGX because that has a much better way of dealing with brightness and colors. So that's quite dark. So let's bring up the exposure a little bit. Okay, I think that is already actually looking a lot better. I'm just going to try to experiment with a few of these. Okay, what I think is I'm going to set this to base contrast. I'm going to set that to 0.5. I think this already looks really nice and very natural. So I'm going to leave that as it is. And then I think that is the last setting I'm going to change to render settings. Then I'm going to make sure it renders out as a TIFF and 16-bit. All right, and then for the render passes, what we're going to do is we maybe want to turn on mist. And then we're going to go to object index. Let's turn on object index and material index. I'm going to make a few masks that we will use. And then glossy indirect, this one, and let's set transmission direct, and because we can use that to make the glass pop. Let's actually turn on both because we might need the other one. And we can actually use the cryptomat object. I think you might use that one actually instead of the masks. And as we have enabled mist, what I'm going to do is go to the world tab, and I'm just going to search mist, and we can set the distances. So we want the mist to cover this whole distance. So let's press T, and let's just measure, just click and drag from here to see how big this is. This is about 114 meters. So let's just set this to maybe something like 150 meters. Okay, because that should encompass everything. And the start fall off, let's set this to 1 meter. And then we can try to blend that in, if we want to, into the final render. I'm actually going to turn off, indexes because I'll be using the crypto mat instead. So, right, what we're going to do, I think we're ready for a render. And we can see how this looks. So let's file save and then render. All right, so this is the finished render, and I think this is looking pretty fantastic, actually. There is some dirt. Maybe this dirt could do with being a bit smaller, but I think for now it looks okay. It's actually, that probably needs a tweak, actually. That's quite, looks like a low resolution image. This dirt looks pretty cool. This looks quite natural on the side here. These plants look natural. Same for the trees. These clouds, just perfect. I can't believe that's how they've turned out. What I have done is I've saved out all these passes. I've just plugged them all into denoise node and exported them. In the other tutorial I have done, the other masterclass for the interior, I've used a file output node. Oh, a file output node. So when the render finishes, it automatically saves everything out. But I didn't do it this time, so I've just manually gone through and saved them all out. I've then also used a crypto mat to specifically choose which objects I want, and I've created a mask for each. And they look like this. So we have a mask for the glass. This is the final render, which I think looks very cool. We have a glass, this one, and we have one for the grass. So what I also forgot to do was when I save out a mask, I need to make sure that the view transform is set to standard. Otherwise, if it's set to filmic or AGX, the whites won't be white. So if you look at this one, the whites are white, but in this one, they're kind of a gray. But for a mask, it needs to be black or white. So make sure when you are exporting as a mask, make sure you export as a standard view transform. So I've created various masks. I have some gloss directs, gloss indirects masks. I have the mist pass, and I have various other masks and things going on. So let's move these over into Photoshop. Okay, so I already have done some changes and I will talk you through them in a second. But what I've just done here is just drop this first image in, and then I right clicked it and did a convert to smart object. From there, you can then add a filter and then add a camera raw filter. In Affinity Photo, there is a similar tool to that, but I can't remember what it's called. But once you add that, you can then go into here and you can adjust various settings. Now, these are the settings which I ended up with, and I'm going to talk you through them now because I just kind of went through it and tweaking, so it's a lot easier for me to go through it and explain what I've done. Okay, so what I first started was the curves, and I just created this curve. So I pushed this up just a little bit just to make these shadows a bit brighter, and then I brought this up as well to follow it so there's not too much differences here. If you bring this too far down, it's like the opposite of contrast. I've also brought this level up ever so slightly, and that basically makes the black misty, which gives it a film look, but I just did that an ever so slightly smidge. And here is where I brought in a little bit more contrast again. So if I bring this back to normal, this adds a little bit more contrast and a little bit more fine control over the specific areas. I think if you're going to use one, you only need to use one. You don't need to use both, but I do find it a bit easier to work like that anyway. For the basic settings, I made it a little bit colder because it was a little bit too warm, I felt like, but I only brought it down by -2. And in general, I increased the brightness and reduced the highlights after I increased the brightness. And this is generally, I didn't do too much here, just try to bring a bit more contrast into certain areas. Then what I did was decrease the vibrance. So vibrance doesn't mean that it's going to be totally black and white when it's 0. It kind of changes the tones ever so slightly. It kind of reduces the dynamic range of the color. Is that right? But I kind of like bringing that down a little bit and then bringing the saturation up a little bit. But I should brought that down. I think that might look better. So it flattens the color and then increases the brightness, the saturation of them. But this is what I ended up with. I think that actually looked a bit better. Okay, we can adjust that a little bit later anyway. Then I got onto detail. Of course, I wanted to add some sharpening, so I added some sharpening here. You can only see that slightly in these edges, but a little bit of sharpening is also very nice. Let's just come back to color mixer in a second and go to effects. I've added some film grain. which gives it a nice natural photography look. And then I added some vignette to the edges here. So if I hide this, we can see the edges go a bit darker, so it focuses the image a little bit into the middle. I always think that always helps focus the image. Then I got on to calibration. So this is where I'm not too sure how to explain it. There's a very good tutorial online on how to use calibration. And if you haven't used it, please check that out, because you can immediately change the whole look and feel of your image. It doesn't necessarily change, it kind of like switches all the colors around. I don't really know what the technical term is for it, but I just played with this until I found something that I quite liked. And I actually think that looked a bit nicer. I feel like you could play with this all day and it immediately changed the whole look and feel of your image. Doing this makes a crazy orange teal look, which you see in a lot of movies. So that's how they get that. And I just kind of played with this until I found something I liked. But maybe something like that is fine. So that's kind of that. And then I went to the color mixer after doing that and try to tweak these colors ever so slightly even more. So I can then choose the specific colors I want to tweak in certain ways. So if the calibration brought one yellow too far green, I can then bring that back again. So we can do something like this. Okay, that's basically it that I did for the color for this one. This, basically you can just work straight the way down and just tweak it ever so slightly. Don't go too crazy. Just tweak a little bit, and just see if you can get a look that you like. I like sometimes going straight to calibration and seeing if it immediately makes a type of theme which I never even thought was possible with the render, and if it pushes me in a direction which I wasn't expecting. There are also tons of presets available for the Camera Raw filter online, so do check out some of those. Just do a quick Google search and there's tons of freebies, and they can always give you the first look into what you could expect. So let's click OK for that. Okay, then the next thing I did was add the mist. So if you look here, we added mist, and the mist is beautiful. So if I hold down Alt and click on the eye, I can see just what that mist does. So that's set to 87, so I've pushed that up like this. And then above that, I have a levels as well. So this levels basically, let's just bring that up here. Sorry, properties. So what levels does is I can tweak how strong the mist is in the front compared to the back. So if I leave that like this and then turn this on, if I bring this down, we can see that the mist comes closer and closer to the camera. If I push it further this way, it makes the mist appear like it's further in the distance, which is a lot like how it happens in real life. You might see the trees in the distance have a slight haze. Maybe it's been a very warm day and there's lots of pollen in the air. So that's always a very natural look. So you can bring in as much as you like, but something like this is quite nice. Just an ever so slight touch. Right then, so after all the calibration and everything, I felt like the sky was too dark. So I made a mask for the sky using the crypto matte. I think I basically just selected everything, and then what was left was going to be the sky. I don't know if it's possible to select the sky, because what I was meant to have done was probably save out another pass for the alpha, but that didn't happen. So anyway, I ended up with a mask for the sky. So let's have a look at this. That's how it looked. And I added that in. So if you wanted to add a mask to a certain adjustment layer, so let's do that together now. So let's say that this is the mask that I want. I'm going to go into this and hold down Control and click here and do Control C. Then I've copied that. Then if I add a adjustment layer, let's say levels, if I hold down Alt and click into the mask and do Control V, we have then pasted that mask into here. But this is the wrong way round, so let's do Control I to flip that. And we can see where I did a very bad job at making the mask, so I just kind of painted in with pressing B and just painted in where the black bit should be, and what was left should have been the sky. So that's how I made that mask. So if I just delete that and delete that, and if I paste that in, we can see that I think I just ever so slightly brought up, I think I made the sky a bit, I think something like this is nice. Then I think I made the sky a bit more saturated. So if we're losing some information here. And I don't think I like this color. So let's just select the reds and bring that down. Ooh. Okay, so I think that just adds a bit more dynamic stuff, a bit more color to the sky. I also did a mask for the grass. I think I adjusted the hue here, but I think I might actually just leave that off because I think that looks a bit more natural. Let's delete that. Okay, so I also added another hue saturation, and that was for this wood. So let's do that one together. So I go to adjustment layer, added a hue saturation. I clicked on this button and then I clicked and dragged on the yellows. Oh, it actually shows as reds. So if I bring that right down, you can make it black and white. If I bring this down just a little bit, we can make that like this. It's ever so slight, but I think that it's a bit better. All right, I think that looks all right. So if I hold down Alt and click here, we can see the original and the new one. I think that maybe it's looking a little bit too moody after everything that I've done. So let's just see if I can bring that back. Just add a hue saturation and just see if I can push up the vibrance or saturation a little bit. Let's try vibrance instead. So I do find the vibrance just to be a bit softer in how it works. I think that's good. Let's try maybe a little bit more saturation. Okay. I think maybe as it's going to be a bit more evening shot, maybe a bit more warmth could be nice. Let's see how that looks. Maybe that is better. A bit more warmth. I think that looks good. I feel like at this point I probably need to walk away and come back to it. But I've been working quite a lot of hours on this and I kind of want it to be finished. But if I was you, take a step away, come back to it and see what you feel like and see if you think that maybe it's just way too saturated. Maybe it's not. I'm probably going to look at this tomorrow morning actually and probably change something, but I don't know if I'll include that in the recording. If I do change it, I will add the final image tomorrow. But I think for now that's probably fine for me. I think the final look is very cool. I love how the background is a bit brighter. I love the look and the details. Okay, now one thing I also want to do is I want to make the pool have a bit more color. So I'm going to add in this mask, which I created. I'm going to press W and just click on this. I'm going to turn on contiguous and select this, just this one, and that's going to be for the pool. Now I'm going to add a solid color, and that will be for the pool. And then that has, with the mask selected already, that's created that mask for me. So I'm going to change that to be like a blue, maybe like this one, but a bit more like this. Then I'm going to change that to be a color. And bring that right down. We just want to add a little bit of blue to the pool. Maybe I can also change the levels of the pool. So let's just. So if I want to copy this mask, all I'm going to do is hold down Alt, click and drag that into here. Then it will create the mask for this one as well. So if I can make this whole pool darker or lighter, but I think darker could be quite nice. I think that fits much better. Let's try to bring in more blues perhaps. Maybe make this a bit less saturated. Let's try to find a blue that maybe fits quite nice. Okay, so that was before and this is after. I think that's much better, as a bit more dynamic color to the pool. I'm not sure, I think adding some color is better. I'm not sure if the blues are working, but maybe we can make it a bit brighter perhaps. No, I think dark is better. Okay, so I think that pool is looking good. I think I'm going to try to make the glass pop. So we already have a glass mask selected, and we have like a glass reflections thing going on here. So I'm going to select this mask, hold down Alt, hold down Control, click and do Control C to select the mask. I'm going to click on this pass, click on the mask, hold down Alt, click into this mask and do Control V. Right, so now we have a mask for this one. So what we can do is just see if there's a mask that looks quite nice. I think screen could be good, but we just need a little bit just to make the glass have a bit more reflections in it. I think that looks good. Maybe having them darker is probably better. I think in this case, I think I'm going to leave this off. I think having it darker is probably a bit nicer. Okay, so I'm going to leave this here for now and come back to it tomorrow and see if it's the finished product which I was hoping for. Maybe tomorrow after some fresh eyes, I want to tweak it. But this is what I recommend you do as well. Just save it how you think it looks good. Come back to it tomorrow with fresh eyes. I guarantee there's going to be something that you'll want to tweak, or you look at it and think, oh my God, because I know this one for me, I feel like it has some too strong colors going on or something, but I just can't see it. So I'm going to go away and come back to it tomorrow. Okay, so I've come back to it the next day and I think that I'm probably going to leave it here. I'm not going to edit it anymore. I do think that if it's requested, I know I said this before and I never did it, but if it is requested by people, I'm going to do a part 2, and I think I'm going to cover the Photoshop side more, but I'm also going to do a different lighting setup. So I want to try a evening light because that's also very, very common for exterior shots, and I think this shot will look very, very nice as an evening shot. So that could be a part 2. I can do the evening shot and then do Photoshop in a lot more detail. I think I just started being very conscious that this is going to be a very, very, very long tutorial. So I was kind of rushing it towards the end. So if that's what you guys would like, then please let me know. And don't forget, there is a sale at iMeshh. So if you want to follow along to this tutorial completely, then please check out iMeshh, 50% off. So it's only $75 for over almost 2,000 assets, which is ridiculous. I do think that it really is an investment. I use iMeshh for my own work, as well as a bunch of people from Discord, and we've now had 1 million downloads. We've had 1 million individual downloads of all the products. So that's all of our customers downloading the entire library, and it's now crossed 1 million downloads, which is ridiculous. So you'll be in good company, and I'm sure that you'll be able to find your place in the Archviz industry. Okay, so thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed this long tutorial. If anybody makes it towards the end, then please do share your renders on Instagram with hashtag iMeshh, and I'll be sure to share those to our channel. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and have a good day, and check out iMeshh, and have a good day. Have a good week. Have a good month, whenever it is.